accounts, so we can take, well, what you want from all of that. The list that you gave is unbelievable. 124,000 in a camper van, Fortnum and Mason's picnic hampers, a couple of lawnmowers, one for 3,000 quid, three dynamic Savile umbrellas, £970. The list goes. A wine coaster. I needed to look up what a wine coaster was. 3,500 quid. So the list goes on.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, serial murder, really depraved crimes, it's quite clear to me that the usual considerations around whether you should be lenient because of this context, whether or not there should be more room for rehabilitation in that context, just don't apply. From the simple commonsensical basis that if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
But this is the thing,
I don't want to take that risk.
If these kids genuinely, and they are kids, everyone involved's a kid. I mean, it's just absolute travesty. If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the street.
Yeah. So there's now a label for children who skip school. Parents can't sort it out. In the old days, I used to think that skipping school was against the law. And parents used to be taken to court. Well, no longer anymore. They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home. Again, I keep saying, on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
Universities. Let's get everyone going to university. Well, I think a fundamental job of education is to prepare children for the society they're going to live in a positive way, i.e. prepare them for a job. You've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
Henry Novak's last words were, "I can't breathe," as he was handcuffed, having been stabbed not only in the front but in the back as well, Okay, he stabbed him in the chest twice, stabbed him in the face once, stabbed him in the back of the leg twice. I mean, what an attack. Let's wait and see what sentence this vile piece of garbage gets. Of course, none of it of which will bring back dear Henry. May his soul rest in peace.
It's just so shocking, Pete, I mean, we're so used to criticising the police for mistakes. This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this one.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, with me, Julia Hartley. A very, very, very good morning to you. I don't know about you, I'm feeling a little bit full of, I know it's now officially summer, but the joys of spring on account of how, didn't we all just have a much better night's sleep last night because it just cooled down a bit? I know we're going to miss nice weather and it's really cloudy outside my studio right now, but it was nice, wasn't it? It was a lovely weekend and now we can all sleep again. What we would like is a bit more sunshine next weekend and a bit less rain. But there we are. Anyway, I thought I'd mention that. We're all full of the joys of summer now, I suppose it is. Anyway, lots to talk about today, and whether you are listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you very much indeed for joining me. If you miss anything from the show, go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, you never have to miss a thing, and I can stop yabbering on about it. Right, we are going to be discussing Nicola Sturgeon. She has refused to apologise for her estranged husband's, well, she said ex-husband, or no longer husband at the weekend. So I don't know if they have actually got divorced, but certainly he was her husband at the time of the crimes, where he admitted to embezzling more than £400,000 from the SNP. She claimed not to have seen that motorhome, not to have any idea there was stuff in her home, that gifts bought for her were bought with stolen money. Does any of that ring true to you? I would love to hear your thoughts on that. She claims that she's serving a sentence for a crime she says I did not commit. Oh, boo-hoo, Nicola, you poor thing. You seem to be so badly done by. I'm not sure any of that flies. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Also love to hear your thoughts about the news that hundreds more files, hundreds and hundreds, more than 1,000 we're told, relating to Lord Mandelson's appointment as the UK's ambassador to the US are going to be published later today. As Jeremy Carr mentioned, 3:30 marks after formal questions. It'll be around that time. We may get them a little bit earlier than that. Meanwhile, Scotland Yard has asked Number 10 to withhold publishing key files about his vetting amid fears they could compromise the criminal investigation. But sounds like there are going to be some quite embarrassing emails and WhatsApp messages between Peter Mandelson and pretty much everyone in Number 10 in the government. He is somewhat of a meddler, it would appear. Plus, we're going to be talking about a police force being threatened with legal action after telling women to share toilets and changing rooms with trans officers. Of course they have, because why would we expect the police to obey the law? Oh yeah, and the new health secretary, one James Murray, said in an interview today that he would not say now that trans women are women, although he did say that very categorically just a couple of years ago. So I wonder what's changed, because I don't think biology's changed, and as we know from the Supreme Court, the law hasn't changed, but apparently he's changed his mind. So he was either lying to us then or lying to us now, or he was insane then and is now sane. He's the health secretary. He's in charge of our health. Are you scared? Because I bloody well am. Also, by the way, you'll be delighted today. It's the 1st of June, so happy Pride Month to one and all. I think it would be simpler and easier if we just marked the days when there wasn't a Pride event or a Pride celebration of some sort, because that seems to be most of the year. But I do feel the need to mention that to you today. Deep sighs all round. Right now, joining me today, delighted to say, is Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor. Morning.
Morning.
Looking very glamorous in orange today, my dear.
It's the summer.
Your summer vibe.
Yeah, summer
Your
vibes.
summer vibe.
Yeah, thought it'd be brighter.
Very frustratingly, these Mandelson files aren't out until later.
Yeah.
I say, although it sounds like there are an awful lot of them. So these things coming out when you're on air, you go, well, I can't read them, man. I can't just go, hold on a minute, everybody. I'm just going to spend a couple of hours reading thousands and thousands of documents. So I want to ask our audience, I mean, you're welcome to have your say on any Mandelson documents. We haven't seen them yet, but feel free to have your say. But crucially, I'd like to hear your thoughts on Nicola Sturgeon. She says she is serving a sentence for a crime I did not commit. She knew nothing about her husband embezzling £400,000 from the SNP. I want to know your reaction to that. Give us a call. Keep it clean, people. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at a national rate. Text costs £1, standard network rate message. And if you do call up and repeat what Jeremy Kyle said, calling her a witch, I will cut you off. Just going to be very, very clear about that. You're able to talk about someone being, let's face it, we all believe her to be telling an absolute big fat porcupine. No one believes her. I've got no time for her. She was a terrible, terrible leader of Scotland, terrible, terrible leader during lockdown. She has played this sort of, oh, I'm so holier than thou for a very long time. And frankly, love, the walls have just come tumbling around. I mean, I've just got no time for it at all. But I think we can manage to have conversations about people, particularly women, without managing to use words like witch. Call me old-fashioned. Claire Pearsall, those are the numbers for everyone else to get in touch. You're in the studio. You don't have to call in. What did you make? Did you watch the Laura Kunsberg interview?
I did.
Excruciating, wasn't it?
It was. You know, when you just think, am I listening to a different part of history? Because none of this actually makes sense.
Yep.
She didn't know about anything. None of it was her fault. She didn't possibly notice that the very expensive gifts that were coming in, like coffee machines, didn't notice those. Because she didn't go in
coffee machines worth £9,000. I cannot stress this. This seems to be the thing that bothers me the most.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, because she didn't go in the kitchen very much.
Apart from all the TV interviews we've seen of her in her kitchen using the coffee machine.
And that's the problem, isn't it? Is that history will always catch up with them, because there is enough footage going around, especially from lockdown times, of different interviews that she did, and the kitchen was in the background. So no, I don't buy any of it.
Who doesn't go in their kitchen? I mean, you might not go in the spare room or the garage.
Exactly.
Everyone goes. I mean, it's like I never went in my bathroom. I didn't know we had a power shower. I never went in the bathroom.
I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. And things like the very expensive pen she was given. If my husband had come home and given me a very expensive pen, I would say, why?
I would say, what the hell are you wasting our money on that nonsense?
Why are you giving me this? Where did it come from?
I'd say, you know what I'd say? That's a weekend in Venice, that is. That's what I'd say.
But she seems to be completely clueless and not even interested in the details.
We know she's clever. We know she's an opposite. But also, crucially, this whole, I mean, she's played the woman card, which really irks me. And one of the reasons I actually always admired her as a politician is she didn't play the woman card. She never did that nonsense thing that Labour women do and Lib Dem women do, going, oh, I'm a woman, and look at you. And that first Labour Chancellor is a woman, all of that, and I couldn't care less. Tory women don't do it, doesn't play well with them, and that's one of the reasons why women do much better in a party based on meritocracy, not on do you tick a box over where your what kind of genitals you've got and what kind of skin you've got and who you like to go to bed with. But she's never did that, and there she is sitting on camera playing this whole line that she, it's because she said this in an interview earlier as well, because she's a woman, and this whole I know nothing. I didn't see anything, and she gets tearful. And I bet she's tearful because she was onto a nice little money spinner, wasn't she? Popular Nicola Sturgeon. You do your book tour. She thinks she's going to be, you know, Michelle Obama, doesn't she?
She does.
You know, and it's absolutely fascinating how a lot of these leaders, particularly the sort of the women holier than thou leaders, especially during lockdown. You've all been exposed for being absolute charlatans, and we've got no time for you. Again, it's not even just, you know, you didn't know what was going on in your own home. She was party leader. She had to sign off on the books. She had a legal duty of care. I'm sorry, I don't understand how she and the party treasurer and Peter Murrell, the chief executive, were originally charged. He's the only one who's actually arrested. He's the one who's actually been charged and been fully prosecuted. I think, you know, it's the fact that she signed off on the documents. She said she's been completely cleared. She hasn't been cleared. There's been no trial. They decided not to charge her. Police said there wasn't evidence to charge her. I would love to see the evidence. Yeah, I would love to see the evidence. You know, whether or not she could. She was absolutely ruthless in attacking those who were on the Treasury Committee of the SNP, who went, sorry, accounts can't be signed off because there's all this money missing. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's just, you know, and so she wasn't late. She went, well, hold on a minute. The first time someone's raised this, it was untenable, I think, to have a husband and wife team in those dual roles anyway, chief executive and leader of the party. That's part of the whole nepotistic little world that Scotland is in. But also, I mean, you got to have some question marks about this whole, like, she's the victim. Well, what about the people who gave the money to that fund for an SNP, you know, for a second referendum on independence? But also, it now looks like £2 million of public money went to the SNP funds in that time, and parties get party funding, you know, for campaigning and things. Yeah. And you know, we don't know whether he was embezzling, you know, donations. Yeah. Or the free funds. So it looks like there is going to be an investigation in Westminster. Even, of course, John Swinney, the First Minister of Scotland, said, well, there shouldn't be an investigation in Scotland. I mean, I wouldn't trust a Holyrood investigation with an SNP majority anyway. But again, it's always the parties who claim to be whiter than white. I'm not. Tories got their problems, Labour got their problems, Lib Dems got their problems, Labour's got their... I get that. It's when they all pretend to be whiter than white and be also holier than thou, and then you go, look, you know what everyone says? You're all the same.
And that's the problem, is that everybody gets tarred by the same brush. But I'm just amazed by her lack of curiosity. If you're signing off accounts, you will want to see all of the balance sheets, profit loss, the whole caboodle, because you're dealing with people's money that they have given willingly for a cause. But then when you're looking also at public money, you have an extra responsibility to make sure those audited accounts are correct. And you have a legal duty. Yes, you do. I know I sit on the board of trustees for a school, and I have to sign off accounts, which means that I have a legal obligation to ensure that both are correct.
And also, like, we go directors of private companies, when they say, "Oh, we didn't know." I think you have a legal duty, and I think we need to have more prosecutions of people in those scenarios, so people start taking those duties rather more seriously. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. 0344 499 1000. Do tell us the best jokes and things. I mean, we've got all these pictures of her coming out of her house with a fancy designer handbag, with an 80 grand Jag. I mean, both of which were bought with these funds. We know this. It's on the charge sheet that he's admitted to, and they've got her with a dark glasses and a guide dog and a stick. I mean, because it is laughable. I mean, and you can see that the 125 grand motorhome. It's on Google Earth outside her mum's. I got sent a brilliant one yesterday which said, well, no, you couldn't see the motorhome, it was hidden. And they've got like a speedboat, they've got a private jet parked in the back garden, they've got the full works. But there's the other thing, the other great story the Sun uncovered, the day before she announced, did a speech ahead of lockdown, please can everyone stop hoarding, don't hoard things like, loo roll and things like that. Her husband bought 12 rolls of 9 loo rolls, 108 loo rolls. I mean, he bought them the day before. Again,
how much
hypocrisy.
Yeah, how many times was he going to plan on going to the toilet? But it was also...
how many hairdryers did he need?
Well, quite. It was also 144 bottles of mineral water. I mean, that's quite a lot. If you've been telling everybody else not to panic buy whilst you're just going clearing the shelves of your local supermarket, it's absolutely ridiculous. Only 2 of them in the house. That's a lot of water.
Yeah. Well, apparently only one of them in the house. She was barely there, apparently, as we know.
Definitely not in the kitchen.
Certainly not in the kitchen, but there we are. This is extraordinary. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because, I mean, again, do you just have well, they're all the same, or do you think this is a peculiar thing to sort of, let's face it, little tiny, little nepotistic, little world. It's almost incestuous world in terms of Scotland, in terms of the SNP being in power for 20 years, and just, is she banged to rights? And yeah, you are going to serve a sentence for this, even if you're not being charged, because no one believes, frankly, a word you say. We just don't.
No.
We just don't. That's my honestly held opinion. But there we are, and I don't think it's an unusual opinion. Let's talk about the Manderson files. We're told Keir Starmer's bracing for the release of these full Manderson files. This apparently is all the documents we're allowed to see, which the police haven't asked. It's the second tranche of documents the police haven't asked to be withheld because, of course, they are investigating him. And we know different police forces are investigating him over not just what happened in 2009, allegedly, with these documents that were information forwarded, allegedly, as a result of the Epstein files being released to Jeffrey Epstein, which he would have been able to, benefit in terms of bailouts and goodness knows what. But also investigations over other aspects of his time as well. But the police said, look, some of these files have to stay private, and including the actual vetting document, the actual, But what we understand is going to be in these apparently bombshell messages. It's a whole load of emails, a whole load of WhatsApp messages sent between people in Number 10. It's basically what the MPs demanded. Every information sent within government, particularly in Number 10, about the Manderson appointment, everything to and from Manderson, and in the 6 months prior, and also in his time in office, between him and anyone in Number 10, Foreign Office, and with government ministers and advisors. I mean, there's going to be a shed load of documents. It's going to take a lot of time for people to go through. And by all accounts, it involves quite a lot of very embarrassing messages, people sucking up to Manderson, also Manderson meddling away in people's affairs. But also, crucially, it's supposed to show that although it was flagged that he should not be given full vetting, which he would need to have this job as our ambassador to the US, our most important security and economic and defence ally, that it was flagged that, and there were concerns. It was reputational concerns about Epstein, but the actual security concerns were about his relationships with, Chinese and Russian, frankly, very, very, very dodgy figures. And we were told, were we not, in numerous bits of evidence that we've covered on the show, about, people at the Foreign Office, chief permanent secretaries and the others, that there was mitigating action taken. So, yes, he has got these contacts. He's had clients. He's been on Mr. Deripaska's yacht and on all of these things. But we're going to take action so that is not in any way impacting any judgments that he makes when he's ambassador. Except it turns out, by all accounts, these documents prove, well, we'll see what they say, that there was none taken. I mean, this is a level of abject incompetence by our government that, frankly, puts us at security risk. This has never been, for me, just about Manderson or about Keir Starmer's poor judgment. It's the fact that our national security has been at risk.
And I think that's the biggest thing. And who knew about it? And this is what we still need to find out, is who knew what and when. Those are the most important bits. We're going to have, I think, some fun with the 1,000 pages of documents. There will be some messages that are embarrassing, WhatsApps between people. However, the more serious aspect is, why was this signed off? Who knew about it? And when did these decisions get taken? So we have to wait till this afternoon to see when this large document is going to land with us. But it should be probably around 3:30. Commons sits at 2:30. Should be.
They should be published about an hour beforehand.
About an hour, 45 minutes beforehand. And the government were ticked off previously for not leaving enough time ahead of it so that MPs can look at it. But is it going to tell us anything that we don't already know? I think it's going to be the depth of the lack of clearance that is going to shock people. Is it going to make any difference to what we all think?
Yeah, and is there going to be a lot of focus just on these WhatsApp messages and, as we saw with, the Hancock messages, and actually a lot of the absurdly useless COVID inquiry about, you were rude about him and he was rude about her and blah, blah, and all of that, and also fawning messages and criticism of Starmer. Apparently, also there's his unsolicited advice to ministers. Apparently, going. I mean, like, you're ambassador to the US, sod all to do with my job, doing running defence or whatever it is. But apparently, there's going to be quite a lot of expectations and controversy about who didn't return any messages. So, you randomly had no messages with this minister or that minister. Were those WhatsApp messages deleted? Now, I've been told by security people that WhatsApp messages are, even if you delete them and even if you have disappearing messages, they still exist somewhere in the ether and security people can get them. Yeah. So that's a bit weird if they haven't been able to get them.
I should imagine that they have, and a lot of people are doing a hefty amount of backtracking. It'd be interesting to see who doesn't say anything later on today when all of this comes out. Who are going to be those people that are going to be hiding in the background away from public scrutiny?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have an issue with the fact that a load of MPs ministers will have said something negative about Starmer. I imagine Mandelson has as well. I'm sure he thinks Starmer's an absolute idiot. Yeah. He really does. But I mean, people say things in public. I mean, are you always absolutely lovely in private messages to your mates or colleagues about every person you work with and every person you know? Remember your family, your boss, whoever. Give me a break. Let's stop holding people to standards we don't actually stick to ourselves. And if you are always perfectly honest all the time, well done to you. The little white lie is kind of how the world goes by, in my view. But my main concern is national security. Yeah. I really, really think we've got a Prime Minister who is absolutely, a liar and should have been long gone. Mandelson had no place being back in government, the first, second, third time. And the fact that everyone seems so casual, just so casual about our national security, letting a man who's mates with, one of big mates of Putin, who's earning money off, Chinese companies which are close to the Chinese government and a hostile nation state. On what planet did anyone think that was a good idea?
Well, sensible people didn't, and what I worry is that all of this is going to be a distraction. So there's going to be the funny messages sent between varying different individuals and rude comments, and everybody's going to be focusing on that and losing from the real seriousness of
look, I mean, this still impacts on Keir Starmer's premiership, and that's one of the reasons why the view is that he's going to have to go. Well, over the weekend, it's revealed that his allies are plotting to keep him in power until Christmas. God help us all. Imagine how many more resets he can manage before then, and U-turns. Fascinatingly, Darren Jones, who's Chief Secretary at the Cabinet Office, he apparently fancies him. He's the one they often shove out on a Monday morning when no one else will agree to do it to defend the government. He fancies himself as some sort of, middle way. I mean, you've got to love the ego of these people. I mean, do they not have wives to go, mate, it's a no? Do they not have anyone in their life who can say, no?
Yeah, because if your other half doesn't say it, your friends really will. And you just
hope they would. No, Darren, people absolutely are thinking what's wrong with Keir Starmer is we need Darren Jones as Prime Minister.
I think my friends would absolutely point and laugh if I had any kind of delusions of grandeur.
Good friends.
Like that. The best friends. And also I think my husband would just give me that look.
And my husband always says, it's very clear, I'm never allowed to have either a gun or any power. It's very, very important.
Very sensible man.
And I have enough self-knowledge to know these is wise advice. What I love is my producer, Ted, is chopping away there going, yeah.
Exactly, but you need that. You need that honesty in your life.
Andy Burnham, apparently, he's getting a little bit ahead of himself. I mean, some of the papers are pointing out today. He's apparently talking about if he gets in and there's a bump in the polls, as is likely to be, because, he wears a T-shirt, not a shirt and a tie. And apparently that makes all the difference to people. He's considering having a snap election. There's talk about him having, I've seen two different names. I do not understand. Shabana Mahmood, the current Home Secretary, or Louise Haigh, the former Transport Secretary, who had to resign over basically fraud involving the theft of her mobile phone from a company, as Chancellor. Yeah. I mean, again, are these people insane? They are literally insane. Are you kidding me? You can't have someone who basically lost a job because she was accused of fraud by her company as Chancellor. He's also apparently opened the door to a pact with the Green Party. The idea that Andy Burnham is some sort of, people think, some middle way, he can please the middle electorate. They're in Cookie Land, aren't they?
But the threat of a snap election, I mean, I can't possibly get my head around this. So you think that Andy Burnham's going to be the saviour that we all need, and he's going to turn the country around, and everything's great, and he can rock up
behind in the polls right now
in his t-shirt and sports jacket, and we'll all be fine. And then he'll have a snap election because that makes everything better, because the country doesn't grind to a halt while there's a general election going on. And then you're going to put a fraudster in as Chancellor. I mean, you couldn't write
not convicted. I'd be very clear, not convicted, but she was. That was the reason why she lost her
Yes, that's why she
job.
lost her job. But you couldn't make this up, and if you were writing some piece of fiction, I think you'd be laughed out. As it being
but also, you've got 400 Labour MPs who right now, their pay is £99,000 a year, plus expenses. And actually, I'm sorry, they do need expenses living in their properties. A lot of them take the mick, but you're on 99 grand. Most of these people will be lucky to earn fucking minimum wage, frankly, minimum wage in any other field of life. And you want them to give up 3 years of 99 grand to have an early election
and
when
pension.
many of them have got and many of them are going to lose their seats to Reform or the Greens or wherever. I mean clown cuckoo land. I do worry. Is everyone involved at the top of politics completely and utterly deranged?
Yes, I think they are, because they lose track of what's actually real. And you do see that when you go into Westminster and you are in that sort of enclosed environment, surrounded by people telling you how great you are all of the time.
Yeah. That's the thing.
And they lose track of what's real.
Meanwhile, the BBC, they're completely delusional, because apparently, I think this is a dreadful show. I can't bear it. The BBC Radio 4 Desert Island Disc, but it's one of their really big shows. Papers emerged last week, in papers on Sunday, that according to Lord Ashcroft's new big biography of Nigel Farage, that he had been banned by the BBC from ever appearing on Desert Island Discs because apparently this would the staff, there'd be a walkout by the staff because they would feel unsafe. I mean. And also worried that other people might boycott the show. Like, how dare you? I mean, who do you think you are? Like, if you don't want to go on the show, don't go on the show. Most people go on the show because they're publicising something, although it's quite a high status thing. You know, lost on the dinner parties to being on Desert Island Disc. So, I mean, on what planet? He's the leader of the biggest, popular, in terms of the popular opinion polls party. Yeah. He's one of the most influential politicians of our generation. And the BBC, because they're completely unbiased and politically neutral, don't you know? They still think that. Wouldn't have him on because you'd make people feel unsafe.
If you feel unsafe by somebody sitting there talking on a radio programme, I think the real problem there is you, not the person talking.
I don't have mass sackings of people in that scenario, don't you? It's the only way of doing it. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Please get in touch, particularly on Nicola Sturgeon. Love to hear your thoughts on these Mandelson files. We haven't got them yet, but what you think they're going to reveal and what does it tell us? Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Nicola Sturgeon says she's serving a sentence for a crime she did not commit. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. This is Talk.
They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 10:29 is the time. Let's get some of your messages coming in about Nicola Sturgeon. She said she knew nothing about her husband embezzling £400,000 from the SNP. This very, very, very tearful interview she did on the BBC yesterday. What's your reaction? Daniel says she thought the fancy cars, watches, jewellery and holidays were all gifts from God. I think one of our arguments is they did have lots of money because they didn't have kids and they didn't go on holidays. I'd have to say, it didn't look like a fun life, did it? It didn't look... It's not my life, I've got to be honest with you. Grieg says, tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. I won't sing it, I like you too much. All politicians live and breathe lies, says Ron. Their reality is that the truth is a lie. You see, this is my thing, is I don't think all politicians do, and that's what bothers me, that people then think that when people do stuff like this. I can't even buy a meal deal without my wife finding out, says Mark. Kuma says, and I didn't take the last biscuit, honest. She should do a lie detector test, says Greg. Heather says she has an unusual medical condition that stops her from seeing camper vans. And Yvonne says, amazing how someone so clueless could have been an MSP. Not just MSP, Yvonne, leader of Scotland, First Minister, for goodness sake. Herbie's on the line in Harrow. Hello, Herbie. What do you make of Sturgeon and her claims?
Oh, don't make me laugh, Julia, for God's sake. Oh, dear, dear. The crocodile tears do not work. I mean to say, when she resigned, when she did, I said at that time, there's something happening for her to resign this job.
Yeah.
Don't just give it up like that. There has to be something very serious going on that's going to affect her.
And she said at the time... She said at the time it wasn't about this, and then she said in one of the interviews that she's done that actually she resigned in early, I think it was February 23, wasn't it? And she'd actually, and he told her in January, so it was over this.
Julia, it's a load of old crap, excuse my French. It's
language.
Ridiculous. I should be careful. It's ridiculous. The crocodile tears. I'm going to work on this occasion because it's too serious. She must have known what's going on. Is she that stupid and blind to see what was happening, what was going in the house, and the caravan parked outside her mother-in-law's house? Yeah. Oh, come on,
yeah.
You need to go to Specsavers if you can't see that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's that her defence is basically, I was too dumb and innocent to know you were First Minister of Scotland. There's one thing we know about Nicola Sturgeon: she ain't dumb.
Oh, exactly. She's not dumb. So why is she trying to come? It would be far better if she said, "I'm very sorry. I did realise what was going on."
No, but then she would face prosecution.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah. Well, then why did she say no comment on the answer?
She said she was advised by her lawyers, and then they did. I mean, my general view is, honestly, that I think that there's police collusion. I feel very, very unhappy that there is just far too many close ties between sort of senior police figures and the government and the party, and it's all kind of wrapped into one. And I'm sorry, I do not trust the judgment of the police on this. I simply don't.
Well, Julie, we've got to admit the country's broken. We've got to admit it is completely out of control. It's broken. It's beyond recognition now. We cannot carry on this way. The police, the government, it's all falling apart. We're suffering very dearly with people that do not know how to run the country at all, and we're paying the price for it very, very heavily.
Ain't that true? Herbie, thank you very much indeed. Mark is in Glasgow, rather closer to home to this issue. Mark, what do you make of what Sturgeon said?
Well, I'm afraid I've lived up in Scotland for 40 years. I'm actually en route back up the M6 to Glasgow, to home. But, watching this nonsense unfold, Nicola Sturgeon is either blind, deaf, stupid, or all three. There's no way she could have not known what was going on. As the head of the SNP and her husband, I used inverted commas there, as the treasurer of the SNP, they were both of them legally bound and obliged to keep an eye on, sign off, etc., all of the accounts. So she knew damn well what was going on. All this, she's going the rounds at the moment to extend her, let's say, life cycle in terms of earning money, leaking and tears and all the rest of it. It's utter dirge and drivel. She's a hard-nosed, hard-faced politician. She's a user, a manipulator. She did it with Sam and nearly finished him. and finished his reputation, but it all came back on her. So I'm afraid you can't believe a word she says.
Yep.
There will be stalwarts who will not change their view.
Oh, I mean, you can see it all over social media. People go, why are you all having a go at her? And also all playing because she's a woman, you're blaming her, all of that nonsense.
Yeah, no, look, I am told, none of it's true, but the pair of them were gay. It was a marriage of convenience, but not a marriage in the truth.
Okay, there's a lot to talk about that. Obviously, that we are not in a position to know what is going on in their marriage, and that there is, that's a matter for them. If whatever the status of their marriage was at the time.
Okay, it was about political power, and isn't it mysterious, A, that she's waited till they're divorced before she starts this off, and B, that the police waited until that Scottish elections to release this information. It shows you how much clout she still carries.
I think he pleaded guilty, but again, the timing of that, the agreement to delay things, I have to say, it just doesn't sit right, and I think with an awful lot of people. But again, I need to be very stressful for legal reasons. People's marriages, sexuality, whatever, that's a matter for them at this point in time. 10:35 is the time. I'm going to take a quick break. Up next, going to talk to Mark Littlewood from Popular Conservatism about all of the big stories. What are we expecting to see from Madison? What does he make of Sturgeon? And are we really going to be stuck with the Prime Minister all the way till Christmas? I never make predictions. And a month ago, I'm like, no, he's gone by the end of the week. Oh, God, how wrong I was. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. 10:37 is the time. Let's get straight to my next guest. He is Mark Littlewood, Director of Popular Conservatism, and joins me to talk about all the big political stories. Very good morning to you, Mark.
Hi, Julia. Great to be with you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Must ask you, first of all, just about Nicola Sturgeon. Did you see the BBC interview? What do you make of her claims to, she knows nothing and that she's the victim in all this? And basically, she seems to claim she's serving her sentence for a crime she did not commit.
Yeah, I don't find the whole story particularly plausible. I mean, immediately, I guess most people started thinking, would I notice if my partner did it? And obviously things like a, giant camper van arriving and this sort of stuff. I mean, I'm not totally sure if my other half bought, an extremely expensive salt and pepper jar that I would necessarily know it was that expensive.
I love that he calls it a jar. He wouldn't even notice if it was in the house or not. You're just like you've met my husband. He wouldn't know, genuinely.
Yeah, I wouldn't notice. So some of me
I could buy
says,
a new house, he wouldn't notice, but he's so glad.
Some of me says, you might, if you're generous, say, well, I just didn't really know. We were both earning quite a lot of money. Sure, expensive things were purchased. But here is the clincher, which your last caller touched on, is they were part of a joint enterprise running the Scottish National Party. And quite a lot of red flags were raised about, hang on, we don't think this bank account quite adds up. Surely there should be more money in this, for the next referendum campaign.
And by the way, raised by MSPs for the SNP, their own party MPs saying, the numbers, there's money missing, we need an investigation. And they were castigated.
Absolutely. So that's the bit that for me is the smoking gun. I guess if my other half was spending lots of money on luxury items, I might sort of think, well, that's fine. You know, she's got a reasonable sum of money. But if she was embezzling the money from a company or enterprise of which I was the leader, then I think my dabs would be all over it. So it's the two taken together. It's not as if they were working for completely different companies and he could sort of lie about what bonus he had received from the law firm he was working for. Yeah, that might just about pass the smell test. But when the money's being embezzled from a party of which you are leader and other people have said, hang on a second, we don't think the numbers add up, and your response is nothing to see here, nothing to see here, you're just troublemakers, no, you know, don't want to hear anything about this. That, to my mind, makes the whole narrative not add up one little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and especially things like, you know, hairdryers. You know, he's bald. And the hairdryers, who were they for? The 80 grand Jaguar on the driveway. I mean, you know, on her own driveway. I think I would notice if my husband bought.
Well, the other thing
how we find. Also, I know she says we were both on high salaries. We didn't have kids. We didn't go on a lot of holidays. You know, that was how we had money to spend. It's not like they were both on, like, you know, $500,000. I mean, you know, they were both on absolutely high salaries, but, you know, after tax, they didn't have, you know, I'm just going to go buy a private island in the Caribbean money. It wasn't that sort of money. It was still the sort of money that a lot of very, you know, successful middle class people earn, but would still be watching what they were spending.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, I criticise my other half for the number of Amazon packages that seem to arrive at our door, but they typically things of like 10 or 20 quid each, right? Yeah. So you're quite right. When it becomes these high-end luxury items, it beggars belief.
Welcome to marriage, folks. Do you know what? I've been fascinated with this since his story came out. Well, since we had the guilty plea, so we could discuss it. Is how everybody is pretty much agreed. You know how men and women are exactly the same. Apparently, that all men and women pretty much say the same thing. You know, women are going, my husband wouldn't notice a thing, and men are all going, my wife would go, what are those new socks? I mean, it's just. It's almost like we're different, isn't it? Who knew? Let's talk about what we're going to learn today about Peter Mandelson and his appointment as the ambassador for the UK to the United States and all the decision-making that went on. We're going to see a heck of a lot of files. Apparently, this is the biggest tranche of documents ever published by the government, well, since the Chilcot inquiry, which was rather bigger. 1,000 pages of documents, including 160 pages of WhatsApp messages and text messages between people in number 10, discussing the appointment of Mandelson, messages with Mandelson, messages about Mandelson, his emails. Apparently, he spent a heck of a lot of time just sort of giving unsolicited advice to anyone and everyone within government. One thing we're not going to see is the actual main vetting document. And there's also apparently no evidence, apparently not because it can't be published, but no evidence because it has not been found of any mitigations put in place to deal with what had been raised as serious, significant security concerns about not his relationship with Epstein, that was a reputational issue for him and the government apparently, but about his relationships with Russians and Chinese and goodness knows who else. Again, we're going to have a lot of gossip. We're going to be able to have lots of front pages tomorrow mocking prominent Labour people, grovelling to Mandelson or slagging off the Prime Minister when the on the media they're praising him. But this is fundamentally a national security story, is it not?
Yes, I think it is in many ways. You're right, I think, Julia, to imply that there are likely to be shortages of popcorn in Westminster this afternoon as everybody piles through the 1,000 pages and is looking for embarrassing replies, I guess. I mean, I'm not so much interested in Peter Mandelson's unsolicited texts or WhatsApp messages. I'm interested in what the replies are. You know, did they reply saying, you know, Peter, I think you're moving out of your lane a bit here. You know, leave it to me. Or did they reply saying, Peter, you know, you are a genius and my saviour, and I will do whatever you say, and you know, please keep the advice coming. And then, which you touch on as well, Julia, once he was dismissed, how many text messages did he receive from Labour people saying, oh, I think you've been very unfairly treated? Or how many did he receive saying, oh, my God, what on earth were you doing? So it could all be very embarrassing on a kind of party political level, and yet another kind of knife in the back of Keir Starmer. But he appears to be like one of those baddies from a B-movie, a science fiction B-movie. You keep thinking he's dead, and he just gets up again and fights on for another scene. But you're right on the national security stuff, right? Here is the worry, putting aside all the scandal about it and the party politics, that we were quite clearly told that we all had to get our heads around this incredibly obscure vetting procedure, but there were worries, but the appointment went ahead because there was mitigation. Yep. Now, I can only speculate what that might be. You've got shares in this company, that might be a conflict of interest, so you'll have to divest those shares, or they'll have to be put in a blind trust. Yep. And then you're confident that there won't be a conflict of interest. Those are the sort of things that you put in place if you're worried there's a conflict of interest. And at the moment, there's no information about this at all. Yeah. Now, we can't derive from that there was no mitigation. But,
But why would that... I can understand. We have got a police investigation into Peter Mandelson at the current time, and the police have asked for certain things to be redacted. But by all accounts, the sources on the committee, the ISC, that have seen the documents that have been, and then they're sifting through, and there's stuff we can't see, and I've got no issue with that. But in terms of police investigation, but also international affairs and our security concerns. But I can see no good reason why we wouldn't be given that information.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I'm with you a bit on the international affairs side. I think it would be okay to release stuff that's embarrassing, but anything that did actually impinge upon national security,
Well, I don't want to see stuff, even if it's like him sort of being critical of Trump things. I'm sorry, we need to have our dip, unless it's showing corruption on his part or something in it, unless there's a really very, very good reason, we've got to have a situation where our ambassadors and governments can have honest conversations behind the scenes, knowing they'll never become public. I think that's absolutely vital. Otherwise, that's going to massively damage our relations with the most important ally we've got.
Well, yes, you say that, but nevertheless, we're about to put in the public domain this afternoon an awful lot of messages between cabinet ministers and Peter Mandelson that they would both have assumed at the time were private. So while we also worried that there'll be a chilling effect on future cabinet ministers never replying to a text message in case the person turns out to be a wrong un. An awful lot's going to be exposed here. I have to say, on the police investigation, I tend to have a furrowed brow. I can understand the Crown Prosecution Service saying, actually, please don't put this in the public domain because if the case ever goes to trial, that might prejudice it. But prejudicing an investigation, that's a bit odd. I would have thought the police can investigate these things whether they're in the public domain or not. There's a separate question about whether you could have a fair trial. So I'm afraid that I raise an eyebrow about that one as being a reason for suppressing it. But look, none of this is going to be good, is it? And one of the things that chills me to the bone is this only came to light because the American Justice Department put this information in the public domain. Had it not been for the Americans, Peter Mandelson would still be the ambassador in Washington. None of this would have been brought to the attention of the British people. None of it would have been a political scandal. He would still be ensconced in post. So a large part of me says we now need to lean to total transparency, because it's only due to transparency on the other side of the pond that we've begun to get anywhere near the bottom.
Although most of the transparency has involved two key British figures, Lord Mandelson and Prince Andrew, as was, rather than actually their own figures. So, no, you make a very, very good point. Imagine he would still be in that role, and given what is being investigated for in relation to, and has been arrested and questioned by the police in relation to what he may or may not have done in 2009 as a government minister then. It's absolutely horrific. And of course, then Keir Starmer wouldn't perhaps have lied to Parliament, would he? Might still be a bit safer in his job. Oh, who knows how the world would be different. Good old Jeffrey Epstein. Not sure many people would say that, eh? Mark Littlewood, great to talk to you. Director of Public Conservatism. Thank you very much, D. Claire Pearsall. That's a really good point, isn't it? This wasn't something that the government, oh look, we've made a horrible mistake, we should release this information. They've been dragged kicking and screaming to this, as indeed our investigations as well.
It's just embarrassing, isn't it, that we have to have another state point out what we already knew. Us normal people already knew that Mandelson perhaps was not the best person for that job, and it takes another state to actually tell us this.
But they weren't telling us this. But again, we did already know this. We did already know this, and I wonder, would we have found out? And again, what else has been going on that we are not aware of? Someone I know who's a journalist who once moved into government at a very senior level as a press officer, but very senior, close to their minister. She told me years back. She said, "I'm used to sort of troubling around to find a front page." She said 10 front page stories cross my desk every hour. That's what's going on in government. And I thought, wow, and this was when Labour was in charge. I thought that is so terrifying in terms of how much are we just not finding out that is going on, and how absolutely, whenever we do find out, they're unbelievably useless and rubbish and incompetent and deceitful. This is not a good way of running a country. No. But there we are. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Up next, we're going to be talking about the police force that insists that if you're a male officer who for some reason thinks he's a woman, you are absolutely required to use the women's toilets. They've been threatened with legal action. Exactly how many organisations are we going to have to acquire to enforce the law? You'd think the police might be one of them you wouldn't have to bother with, but apparently we do. This is Talk.
They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:51 is the time. We are now a year and 2 months after that Supreme Court ruling. I know I keep banging on about it. That one brought by For Women Scotland, which established beyond any doubt, not that there was any doubt before, that the definition of sex was based on biology. Men are men and women are women. They cannot change sex. It's really not complicated. And yet we are still seeing numerous organisations, including NHS hospitals, public bodies, you name it, Parliament for a long time, even the government departments, basically refusing to obey the law. The latest being a police force. This is Gwent Police. They've been accused of breaching the equality guidance that's come out since then, finally published by the Equalities Minister Bridget Phillipson a couple of weeks ago. And they've been threatened with legal action after telling women to share toilets and changing rooms with trans-identified officers. So trans-identified men who claim that they are women, who are just basically men in women's underwear and a wig, or, goodness knows what else, and insisting that they get changed down to, their bra and knickers, or even use the loos next to those men. Well, let's talk about this with Kathy Larkman, who's director at the Women's Rights Network and is also herself a retired police officer. Good morning to you, Kathy.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. I mean, I sort of want a deep sigh always at these things. Just like, how is this still happening? Why don't people understand the law? And most of all, the police, because these are the people policing everyone else, and they apparently don't understand the law. Tell us, just first of all, in terms of a police station, in terms of changing, presumably, police officers wear their civvies to and from work, like nurses do. We've had all these cases in the NHS. So they are actually required to get changed at work.
Yes, and many officers won't choose to put a civilian jacket on over basic uniform to travel back and forth to work for obvious reasons of risk. And there's also hygiene reasons as well. Yeah. Policing is often a very messy business. You're dealing with conflict, at first level.
Drugs
uniform gets your uniform gets soiled with all manner of stuff. You know, I can run through the variety of stuff that you can get soiled
Please
with as
don't.
a officer if you wish. But, you know, you have to change. And I think our brave female officers deserve privacy, dignity and safety when they are changing in the workplace, when they are showering in the workplace, or when they're using other facilities in the workplace. And call me old-fashioned, Julia, but I think the police forces are meant to uphold the law and enforce the law, not ignore and break the law,
No,
and tell us that they've got to carry on doing it.
And it is just extraordinary. And I think, again, lots of us are flabbergasted that anyone is still claiming that they don't understand the law. An 8-year-old could have understood that judgment from the Supreme Court April last year. But they've written to their member staff saying trans members of staff are entitled to use the facilities of the gender in which they present, i.e. if you think you're a man or pretending you think you're a man or a woman, you can do that. Now, that is an expressly, I mean, that expressly contradicts the letter of the law, not just as expressed by the Supreme Court, but as has always been the law under the Equality Act. How do they get away with it? I mean, what your organisation? We know the wonderful, Sex Matters. They're doing lots of cases, trying to sort of do test cases. Going, look, we're just going to prove that you are going to face legal action. You're going to lose. I mean, what can the female officers do in this instance right now? What are they entitled to do?
It's very difficult for female officers to speak out against what's happening in the police. The truth is, policing as a whole at a senior level has absolutely lost its mind to gender ideology and have totally forgotten that its female officers and staff have rights as well. It is very, very difficult for those female officers and staff to speak out for fear of consequences. I know because many of them tell me, and because I've worked in a policing environment for decades.
And you'll get ostracised in the canteen. I would have thought also, after the likes of Wayne Couzens and that massive big investigation, Met Police and other big police forces basically rooting out, the horrific sort of sexist, misogynistic men. Men even being accused of abusing their own partners and the like. I'm pretty sure a lot of those female officers would be very, not just, it's not about dignity, but actually afraid to be changing in front of some of their male colleagues.
Well, 100%, which is why the Women's Rights Network think it's very, very important that this is dealt with and that Gwent Police receive a letter before action. They're not the only force either, Julia, but they are one of the most brazen forces. And Wales Women's Rights Network actually offered them a meeting and pointed out the legal implications and received a very, very dismissive reply from them. Now, the police are the very organisation that should understand safeguarding and risk.
Yes.
They deal with voyeurism and indecent exposure and sexual assault on a daily basis and the reality of that. And they know that overwhelmingly the main volume of perpetrators are male and the main victims are female. So to somehow pretend and talk about entitlements to use female spaces is absolutely astonishing. And as I've said, they've totally forgotten that their female officers and staff have rights as well. They are subject to the workplace regulations of 1992, which stipulates single-sex spaces as well.
And there was a reason why that was brought in. And let's face it, the vast majority of men are very, very happy with those rules. They don't want to be in the same changing rooms or toilets as well. They don't want mixed changing rooms or mixed toilets. They don't want it either. There's the vast majority of people who are just going to rearrange the entire world against the actual law, not just the spirit but the letter of the law, for the 0.5% of people who either think or claim to think that they're the other sex, and frankly a bunch of fetishists who want to put a bra on and want to look at women getting undressed. Let's call it what it is.
Absolutely. And, it's just a really, really sad day. We know that many forces have had these policies for many years, and we've sort of shouted about them before and tried to get them to change. They are clinging on to these policies and will have to be dragged kicking and screaming towards legal compliance. And I think as a citizen of the UK, when a police force is telling you that it doesn't intend to follow the law, that it's entirely lawful, that should concern us all.
Well, if I was arrested for a crime in Gwent, I would just say, I didn't think we had to obey the law. Why would I'd go to court and say, no, I didn't think we had to obey the law. If the police don't obey the law, why should I obey the law?
Yeah, and Gwent aren't the only force either. In the Freedom of Information Act exercise conducted by Women's Rights Network, we know of several forces that maybe weren't quite as 100% blatant as Gwent Police, but told us via their policies that they were allowing men to access women's spaces, and they were carrying on doing that.
But again, no, but again, we've got the Labour Party in government. They've been, they've been drag kicking and screaming to this as well. The Lib Dems apparently at loggerheads. Again, Ed Davey, the leader, has pledged to oppose official guidance protecting female-only spaces. I mean, stand on an election, put it in your manifesto, and get elected, and then change the law. Good luck with that. I don't think you'll get it through, but again, you don't get to pick and choose the laws you obey. Good for you. I mean, thank God we've got people like you, Cathy Lotman, Director of the Women's Rights Network. Well done. Keep us posted on this one. Keep in touch on this. I know I'll get Claire Pistol's thoughts on this as well, but it is mind-blowing. It is day one of Pride Month, though, because, my God, we have to talk constantly about minorities in this country instead of the 51% majority of women in this country who apparently whose rights count for absolutely nothing anymore. But there we are. We should really just mark when it isn't Pride Month, as far as I can tell. It seems to be every single day of the year these days. Loads more coming up on Sturgeon, on Madison. You know it. Give us a call. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, now approaching 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you very much for joining me. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. And if you miss anything from the show, you can watch on YouTube. I'm sorry, not watch on YouTube. You can go to my YouTube page, get it right, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, as you can then never miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking more about those Mandelson papers. They're going to be out later this afternoon, probably around the 3:30 mark. Hundreds more files, 1,000+ pages, we're told, relating to his appointment as the UK's ambassador to the US. But will there be crucial things missing? We're also going to be talking about Wes Streeting says he would issue licences to drill again in the North Sea. Oh, well, that wouldn't go down well with a lot of the diehards, would it? Or the Green Party, who Andy Burnham says if he was leader, he would happily do a deal with them. I mean, they're just playing, they're literally playing politics with basically our economic future. And despite a ceasefire, the US says it has struck Iranian military sites over the weekend, while Tehran said it responded by targeting a US base. We're going to talk to Andrew Fox, big favourite of the show, about also what is going on in Lebanon as well, as Israeli forces have advanced further north there. And quite right too, I would say. Here's a top tip: don't have a complete private army funded by Iran trying to obliterate the Israeli people, and then you won't get invaded by their forces trying to destroy that terrorist army. Hi, it's really simple, guys. It's really that simple. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all the big stories we are talking about, including Nicola Sturgeon. In particular, she says in this tearful interview with Laura Kunsberg yesterday. I have to say, Laura Kunsberg in the BBC interview, she did ask all the right questions. I don't think she necessarily pushed as hard as she could, because that's why she got the interview. That's why people like Nicola Sturgeon don't comment in shows like mine, because you just don't go, I mean, I just simply don't believe you. Simply don't believe you, which no one realistically does. She said she's serving a sentence for a crime she did not commit. She's been playing the woman card, something I'd always admired her for not doing until this point. And says she knew nothing about her husband embezzling £400,000 from the SNP. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just laughable. What's your reaction to that? Give us a call. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text costs £1 standard network rate message. Delighted to say that Claire Pearcell still joins me, former Conservative government advisor. Let's just touch on Nicola Sturgeon again, and then I want to talk about Madison. Also, some breaking news regarding Rwanda and that migrant deal. I'll save that for just a couple of moments. But in terms of Nicola Sturgeon, as we were discussing earlier, I've yet to meet anyone, other than I've seen some people online, the SNP, the full-on nats, who go, you're just attacking her because she's a woman, you wouldn't be doing this if it was a man. I mean, are you kidding me? There isn't anybody, I think, other than Nicola Sturgeon and a few of these nats, diehards, who think she didn't know that there was a lot of stuff coming to her home that was unaccounted for, and that her husband had actually embezzled 400 grand from the SNP.
It beggars belief that she's holding this line that she knew nothing. I mean, why do you think that A, that's going to work, and B, that people are going to believe you?
But she has no choice. If she did know something, she would be prosecuted.
Why do the interview? Why do the interview?
Because she's got a book to sell and she's got to earn a living.
Ah, there you go.
And that book, that life she was planning, that's gone, isn't it? That sort of, having a job, having all these little top jobs and, envoy for the UN or whatever, well, they're all gone.
Maybe she should just have lived her life a little bit more according to the law. I mean, it just beggars belief that you wouldn't notice a brand new car on your driveway.
80 grand's worth.
Yeah. I mean, if my
husband, a little run around, an 80 grand Jag, is it?
Yeah, if my husband bought home a new car, I would know about it because he's really rubbish with cars, and I would be judging his choice.
And then a 125 grand camper van parked on her mother-in-law's driveway, visible on Google Earth.
I mean, so she never went round to that address
and
ever.
Yet there have been people saying, but I saw her, she was, in the local takeaway, and, my mother-in-law lives around the corner, blah, blah, blah.
Lack of curiosity as to where things come from, signing off the accounts, things that she had a legal duty to be able to be all over.
Because she was leader of the party. Again, this isn't about just a husband and wife. No. This is about two people at the top of a political party that had run Scotland for 20 years. He was chief executive. She was the leader of the party. She had to sign off the accounts.
Yes, so therefore you would know what was in them, and you would be able to see if there was a difference in the amounts.
And MSPs had flagged on the Treasury Committee, they refused to sign off the audit,
there's
the
a
accounts,
discrepancy,
because they said there's so much money missing. And of course, crucially, she's playing that she's the victim. 2 million quid of public money went to the SNP in this time. Hundreds of thousands raised by donors who wanted a second referendum on independence, and he embezzled 400 grand. There's still more money that's missing. I think there's 600 grand in total that's missing.
And you wonder where that's gone, don't you? Because this is only the stuff that we know about. This is the stuff that
he's pleaded guilty to.
That he has pleaded guilty to. So what else is there? Because that is a large amount of money still outstanding that nobody can reconcile in the accounts. So where's that gone?
Yeah.
But I think that party funding needs to be a lot more transparent. That goes for all parties.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly our callers have got no time for this. Do give us a call, 0344 499 1000. If you think Nicola's telling the truth, do tell us. Now, again, she said no comment in the interviews. That she said that she was advised by her lawyer to do that, and then no further action. I have big question marks about the police. Why was there no further action?
Yeah.
Why did you think it was tenable? It wasn't one of those she wasn't like some little housewife. No offence, but it wasn't just like little. It had nothing to do with anything. She was a seriously clever.
She's not stupid.
She knows exactly what she's doing.
Yes.
She does the detail. It's simply unbelievable, and I don't know why the police did. And I think there's too much going on, and too much cosy going on between the SNP government, the Parliament there, and the police, and it's all just far too cosy. It's too incestuous. Everyone's mates with everyone, and you don't want to bring down the party because if you're a nationalist, and I think we need again a full inquiry into this, because again, do I really care about 400 grand being embezzled and spent on a camper van? That doesn't make any difference to me. Probably doesn't make any difference unless you want the people who donated to that.
Yes.
However, what else is going on? And this links in with the Pat Mandelson story.
Yeah.
What else, if we hadn't had the Epstein files, what else has been going on in government, or allegedly going on in government? There is a police investigation into Peter Mandelson, what happened alleged in 2009 when he worked in Gordon Brown's government. What the hell is going on that we don't know about it, that is constantly being covered up and just doesn't make it into the front pages and doesn't become front page news?
Yeah, and it's always that, isn't it? These are the things that we're told. These are the things that we're allowed to know about, grudgingly in some cases, but what else is there? And you wonder what they're hiding behind. I know from my time in government that there are an awful lot of things that the public never know about.
And these are things that you know about and you know are scandals, but it's because the officials, you worked in the Home Office, your official Secrets Act, if you revealed it, you could be prosecuted.
Absolutely.
And are these things that we really should know about?
In some cases...
Is there a whisper, a law that's good enough that would protect you?
No, and I didn't have high enough security clearance for the really sort of proper stuff. But there is stuff that you would like to know, and the general public, I think, needed to know.
And this is the thing, isn't it? Just I'm always worried about the level of incompetence. And again, the weird thing about this story is again the stuff that Peter Murrell, who's pleaded guilty to 400,000 embezzlement, what he was buying. I mean, it's just the coffee machines, the Mont Blanc pens, the £2,600 salt and pepper shaker. It's all bizarre. But also, as people are pointing out, 108 loo rolls. So that's 12 packs of 9. They always come in 9, don't they? I don't know what sort of larder you can get, but 12 packs of 9 loo rolls and a load of mineral water that he bought the day before Nicola Sturgeon went on telly and warned people not to hoard stuff and stock up and mean to shortages. Because there was a point when loo roll was quite hard to come by, wasn't it?
It was. I remember going to the supermarket and the shelves were absolutely decimated. There were no pasta, rice, water and cat food.
Can I say, do you know what, though? In my local supermarket, plenty of fresh fruit and veg.
Oh, yes.
Funny that.
A lot of broccoli.
Funny that. No one was worried about running out of broccoli or spinach, were they? Funny that. Again, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Message on X at Talk TV as well. Nicola Sturgeon, what is your reaction to her saying she's serving a sentence for a crime she did not commit? This does massively lead in to the story about Peter Mandelson. So in about 4 hours' time, we're going to get these the second and we're told final tranche of these documents about his appointment as a UK ambassador to the US. We know the police have said certain files, including the actual vetting file for his appointment, it's been much discussed at those select committees with former permanent secretaries, Ollie Robbins and others, that must be kept private. Which is interesting because there's a police investigation and we've had an arrest, but we haven't actually got formal charges. And actually, the main investigation has actually been about from leaks from the Epstein file, the publication of the Epstein files, of alleged wrongdoing when he was a minister in Gordon Brown's government. So, a long time ago. We know that the Prime Minister was told, well, not told, I mean, it was in the public domain, but he was absolutely warned in documents that he saw, which we've already seen in number 10, that there was certainly a reputational risk attached to appointing Peter Mandelson, because he was not just a former friend of Jeffrey Epstein, he was an ongoing friend until he was arrested. They'd been friends with him even after he was charged and imprisoned for soliciting an underage girl for prostitution. But we also know the reason why he was flagged as someone who should not be vetted and should not get the job, and then that decision was overridden as the Foreign Secretary was allowed to, and his department was allowed to do, was actually over his links with with China, with Russia, his money making in his company from Chinese companies, and he just kept some very questionable company. Close mates of Putin and allies, and there were massive security risks there. And we were told that mitigating factors, i.e., put money in a trust or divest yourself of those shares. I mean, presumably, you're no longer allowed to go on Deripaska's yacht anymore. You'd think. But there, as far as we know from the files that we understand are going to be released from the sources who have seen them, because there's a lot of leaking going on, there is no evidence that any mitigating factors were put in. And we were told repeatedly, were we not? Yeah. There were some concerns. Well, first of all, there were no concerns. No one knew. If I'd known now what I knew then, the Prime Minister said, you did know now and you did know then. So that's a lie. Prime Minister should have gone on that alone. And he told Parliament that. But also, we were told by former Permanent Secretary Ollie Roberts that there were mitigating factors put in. So, but it appears like there weren't as well. This is an absolute scandal of epic proportions. Why? Not because some bloke who was dodgy got put in this role. But we know he's dodgy, and forget the police investigation. He's been sacked twice for lying. That's good enough for me, as he's dodgy. But the fact that this was a national security risk. He was going to see the highest value security documents, defence, security, economy, between us and our greatest ally, and stuff from the Five Eyes, from Australia, Canada, New Zealand as well, and other allies. He was at basically the heart of government, and no one thought that this was questionable.
Don't you think that just sums up this government's approach to everything? They can't make a decision that they then stick to. They don't understand the implications of putting somebody in that role when they cozy up to varying different dictators and their business interests are with hostile nations. They don't see that as a problem either, because all they were concerned about was having somebody that could befriend Donald Trump in America. So nothing else mattered to them. And it's that lack of oversight, lack of strategy and lack of absolute understanding of how this works that has led to this situation. But as you say, Peter Mandelson had history of being sacked twice.
Yeah, there was a giveaway.
Most people on the street would know that he wasn't going to be a trustworthy individual, even if they didn't know the depths of his business interests.
Yeah, it is just extraordinary, isn't it? It really is. Let's also talk about this news from about Rwanda. The British government is a court has ruled. This is the Hague's Permanent Court of Arbitration in the Netherlands. They've ruled that the UK government does not have to pay Rwanda millions of pounds over the failed migrant deportation deal. Well, I mean, it was a cancelled migration deportation deal. The case was brought by Rwanda against the UK. The Rwanda argued that the UK still owed it around 100 million quid as two payments of 50 million each, are both due April this year and April last year, plus a smaller amount tied to a reciprocal UK commitment to settle some vulnerable refugees from Rwanda. Rwanda says those sums are due and remain payable, despite the UK unilaterally terminating that treaty back in 2024 when they came into power. They claim the UK had failed to honour other obligations like the resettlement of refugees, had breached the agreement by not negotiating new financial terms before cancelling. But the court has ruled that the UK does not have to pay Rwanda that money. I mean, it was huge sums of money. I think we didn't we have more Home Secretaries, more Home Office visits than we had actually deportations. Yes. Now that Rishi Sunak called the election in 2024 foolishly July 2024, before the first fake economic migrants, illegal migrants, were supposed to be sent to Rwanda. I've always had doubts about this court case on the basis that I think it's a principle, it's absolutely right, but I don't think people have a right to be here, but if you put them somewhere, it's a safe country. It's a perfectly safe country, certainly safer than being in Afghanistan if you feel you're being persecuted in Afghanistan. But it was never going to be scaled up to the sort of scale, and we do need, we need 200,000 people to be moved there, and it was never going to be on that scale. It was in the hundreds, not even the thousands, let alone the hundreds of thousands. But in principle, I think it was something that the government should have the right to do. Labour said it wouldn't have worked. What do you make of this court ruling?
Well, I think it's the right court ruling to make. Rwanda had an awful lot of money out of the UK government for very little in return. We sent 1 or 2 people,
and they're using that accommodation for other countries, migrants now.
And some of them they've indeed sold off. So they've done quite well out of this little deal. I think we'd also sent more journalists over there than we did people to rehome. But I think we need, as a country, to understand that you need to have that option of being able to send people elsewhere for processing. It shouldn't be such an issue. Rwanda was always doomed to fail because it was negotiated too quickly with a lack of detail under Boris Johnson.
Yeah, but also, again, it was one of those things that was done, because of the European Court of Human Rights and because of all the legal challenge, it never got off the ground. I mean, literally, we watched planes, didn't we, supposed to be carrying people. Sat there, the plane just sat there, people were taken off. 700 million quid of our money, taxpayers' money, was spent. A government spokesman said the UK robustly defended its position and the tribunal has now ruled in favour of the UK on all grounds. The previous government's policy wasted time and £700 million. But at the time, by the way, was only because there were legal challenges which Labour supported. So they can sod off on that front. And £700 million of taxpayers' money to send, it's a fair point, 4 volunteers to Rwanda. No one was deported. No. They were paid. This is always really, I'm sorry, paying people. I will drag you up the stairs by your hair in handcuffs. If you're not here legally, you can either walk it or we'll drag you. I don't care which at this point, but we're not paying you a single sodding penny.
We pay them thousands of pounds to go, and I think it should always be, if you are returning somebody to a country, then give them enough money to be able to get a bus fare home. It's that kind of level.
We give less money to prisoners.
Yes.
We give less money to people who leave care.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. It's just outrageous. I would love to hear your reaction to this. Look, I think it's a good thing we're not going to have to pay that 100 million quid. It's your money. It's not the government's money. It's your money and my money. But do you like the Rwanda policy reinstated? Was that 700 million quid badly spent? Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Let's also talk about, this is a Tory policy announced yesterday by Robert Jenrick. Not Robert Jenrick. He's no longer... I do get confused who's with which party this week. Apologies for that. Chris Philp, Shadow Home Secretary. He says the Tories want to introduce ration cards to prevent thousands of criminals from spending their benefits on alcohol and gambling. Basically, if you're a criminal, you come out of prison or off some sort of order, instead of basically getting your benefit money to spend on what you want, you're going to get basically these called Aspen cards. They're similar to ones that are given to asylum seekers. So these sort of benefit ration cards, and basically welfare claimants who've received a community or suspended sentence where alcohol, gambling or drugs were a factor in the offence. They're preloaded with benefit funds, but you can't use them to take out cash, it can't be transferred to anybody, and you can't use it to gamble or to buy booze. And they reckon some 130,000 criminals a year could be issued with those cards. I mean, I quite like the idea of this. I have a funny feeling it won't work.
No, it won't work. Because those people on the left will say, well, we couldn't possibly do that. That's treating them unfairly. I'm of the view, if you've had a community order, you've been in prison for those kind of crimes, then you have to live with the consequences of that. Yes, you may have served some time, but if you're going to reintegrate back into society, prove that you can be a proper citizen again.
Yeah,
I don't see an issue with it at all. I really
get a job.
don't.
A lot of them find it hard to get a job, don't they? But I mean, it is. Yeah, it's very painful. It really is. Let me also ask you about NHS single patient records. This is something that James Murray, the new Health Secretary, as I said, it will be crucial to bring in, but with strict legal safeguards in place. Plans for a single patient record for the NHS in England. That's going to be debated for the first time by MPs today. And the aim is to combine your GP record, any hospital records, any social care data, so you don't have to basically keep, you arrive and you go, right, so this is what happened, but and these are the things I'm allergic to, and this is my medical history, and that's why that, and that's why that. And a lot of patients, of course, in an emergency situation won't have that information. Maternity, I remember from when you're about 6 months pregnant onwards, you're just told to carry your file around with you. Don't go anywhere without it. If someone's unconscious, a lot of people simply, they're elderly, they're vulnerable, they simply don't know the medication they're on. I can absolutely see the point of this, but given that, the data breaches we've seen, given that we had only last week, was it 15 people sacked from one hospital trust alone for trying to access the medical history of the 3 victims of Valdo Callicane, the Nottingham killer, outrageously. Doctors doing it. I'm not talking about even porters doing it, but doctors in a trusted position. I've always been very, very wary of the idea that, basically anyone can access your information. Plus, the idea is that it would all be on your app. This could be an issue, particularly for women and men, maybe in a vulnerable situation with a partner, where someone will force you to log onto your app and see that, for instance, you've had abortions or that you're using contraception when you said you were told not to. If you're in those sort of controlling relationships, there could be issues.
There could be issues, but I'm not averse to having the NHS having a sort of point of reference. I remember years ago, my mum and dad went on holiday. My mum slipped and had to go to A&E with a cut over her eye. And this was in the UK, but in a different county. And it was incredibly difficult. She had to keep relaying all of the medications that she was taking because
they might counteract with...
Absolutely. And it was just ridiculous. And thankfully, she was there with my dad and she phoned me and we could all be back up. But if she was on her own, that would have been incredibly tricky to do.
Or she was unconscious.
Absolutely. And I think that it makes sense within the UK. If it's the NHS and it's meant to be a system for everybody, you should be able to go into whichever hospital is nearest to you and have your records there immediately.
But there is a risk in terms of everything being available, but then there comes a point where, that's already a risk anyway.
Exactly. And I think that we have to get over that. There has to be better safeguards in place for selling off of data as well, because we all know that can happen, that your data and login details are
there's a big dispute over Palantir.
There is
an American company, possibly, and that, again, a lot of it seems to be because people don't like the fact that they've done work with Israel. I would be more inclined to use them on that basis, but there we are. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Do get in touch. Anything and everything we're talking about. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Also, we're going to be talking very, very soon about the latest fun and games in the Labour Party, also what is going on in the Iran conflict, and indeed what's been going on in Lebanon. We'll talk about that with Andrew Fox, but your calls are up next. Do get on the texts as the tweets as well, 87222 and at Talk TV. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch, and all the big stories, and we'll put you on the phone lines up next. This is Talk.
They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:27 is the time. Let's go to Vernon, who is in Staffordshire. Let's give us a buzz on 0344 499 1000. I'm talking about Nicola Sturgeon. Vernon, you of course absolutely agree with Nicola Sturgeon that she is a victim of this horrific embezzlement by her husband, and that she's serving a sentence for a crime she did not commit, don't you?
Respectfully, young lady, she's talking out of her derriere, I'm afraid. like everybody in Westminster. I'm sorry. I know Claire will get very upset. They are all rotten to the core, regardless of their political party. I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them.
See, I don't agree with you. I don't think they are all rotten to the core.
I knew you wouldn't, Julia. You're a lovely, lovely person. But I have my own opinion, and I wouldn't trust them at all.
Do you think they're less? Do you think MPs or MSPs, anyone in politics, do you think they are less trustworthy than the average person, or you just think they're just as trustworthy as the average person, and that's not very much?
Julia, look, just follow the money. Please have a look and see how many career politicians are millionaires earning 80,000 a year.
Well, they're on 99,000 now. There's gone up a lot, but no. But also, no. Crucially, also, most of the people who are well off in politics made money before they went into politics. Yeah, they did.
No, Julia. No. With respect, have a look at the career politicians. I said to you.
Oh, you are right.
Not those in business. Have a look at those. They earn X. Yeah. I earn X plus plus plus.
Yeah.
I am as far away from being a millionaire now as I've ever been.
Yeah.
And I have a great business. And the reality of it is, these guys, it shook their hands. I check I've got 4 fingers.
You got no time for it.
They are as slippery and as slimy as ever. And this country is for dogs. So why are we surprised? Police forces not following the law, really? So
yeah, we were talking about that trans story. Yeah, literally in the wake of that ruling, trans guidance saying, no, we're just going to just basically completely ignore the law. It's just extraordinary.
So next time I get stopped by the police, I invariably do because I drive a fast car, and they say, oh, you're a naughty boy, aren't you? I say, don't worry, boys, I'm just not going to follow the law anymore.
But I genuinely think at this point that would be a defence. Can I ask, where are you on the Mandelson files? Do you think there's going to be a big smoking gun? Do you think, because there was a lot of talk about how these Mandelson files were ready to go a few weeks ago, and ahead of local elections, and that Labour were fearing they were going to be very, very embarrassing. And then Makerfield by-election as well. That actually there's a lot more in there that could damage Keir Starmer.
Julia, it's really simple. Do as I say, not as I do. They are as guilty as charged. Why would you redact information? You only, like cameras over tills, life in general, it's only a problem for the guilty. The Labour Party are up to their necks in the grooming gang scandal. They're councillors, police, law enforcement. Come and sue me, boys. I've got nothing. Come and sue me because you're all wrong-uns.
There you are. He said it. There'll be a lot of people cheering you on there, Vernon. Thank you very much indeed. He touched on a story that Georgina in London wants to talk about. Georgina, good morning to you. You want to talk about this extraordinary story. Gwent Police basically saying, no, doesn't really matter at all what the the Equality and Human Rights Commission says, or the Supreme Court last year. If you are a trans-identified officer, you can use whichever changing room and toilet that you decide your gender is, as opposed to what your biological sex reality is. Apparently, police don't have to obey the law.
Well, I've got a little advice for Gwent Police. It's going to offend some people, but sometimes the truth does offend. Men who want to play dress up and think that they're women don't need to be enabled by government bodies, hospitals or the police. They need to be referred to psychiatric wards to receive treatment for their mental illness, because that's what this is. Men cannot be women, Julia, and women cannot be men. You cannot have a child if you don't have the correct internal equipment. And a biological man has not got this equipment. Only a woman has that. Therefore, that is what differentiates men from female.
Yep.
That's that simple. No amount of surgery, makeup, or hormone replacement or outside encouragement will change this fact. All this is doing is making this problem far worse than it need be. It's confusing our children, polluting our hospitals, who are appeasing these confused individuals instead of treating them for the mental illness, and sadly putting women at risk. As now, this allows men into women's spaces. Not only now, Julia, have we produced a soft generation that are work shy. We've also produced a generation that have anxiety problems and are confused about their sexuality. And I think that the government and the educational sector have got a lot to answer for on this issue. It's becoming a real problem now.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you make of James Murray? He's the new health secretary. And he said previously, I believe trans women are women. In fact, been on my show, we question. I mean, I've went into quite a lot of detail with him about it. He was asked about it this morning and he said, I've changed what I would say. Interesting to say. I wouldn't say that phrase anymore. Over the last few years, a lot of us have thought about this question in some detail. I mean, maybe they just looked in their pants. He says the Supreme Court has obviously ruled very clearly that biological sex is what matters when it comes to the Equality Act and determining the importance of single-sex spaces. I believe that single-sex spaces should be protected on the basis of sex, on the basis of biological sex, while at the same time believing in dignity for trans people. Single-sex spaces within NHS need to be protected on the basis of sex. Now, one would hope then that the NHS, every NHS trust would now absolutely, as of today, start obeying the law they should have been obeying all along, and certainly since April last year in that Supreme Court ruling. However, there's been no new information. There's no new scientific evidence. There's no actual new legal guidance. I mean, the Supreme Court made it very clear last April last year that the law was always the law. So my thing is, and as I've tweeted out today, were you lying to us when you claimed that you thought that trans women, i.e. men, were women? Or are you insane and you thought that? And when did you stop thinking it? And when did you decide to stop lying to us? Because should we forgive and forget the people who said this?
No, Julia, people who in government who have ever said, and this includes our Prime Minister, if they have said that men can be women, then these people are unfit to govern.
Absolutely.
This is a biological fact. We were taught this when I was at school. You're a lot younger than I am.
No, you didn't even need to be taught it. A one-year-old baby knows.
We knew that a woman could have a baby and a man had a tig-leg. It was as simple as that. There was no confusion. And any adult now who says the contrary should not be governing. This is madness.
I couldn't agree with you more. I really do think it's one of those things like it's a test of sanity and honesty, and they fail on all counts. They were either lying to us or they were insane and suddenly not anymore. Either way, not entirely sure you should be running the biggest employer in this country. Georgina, as always, fantastic to hear from you. Claire Pearsall, must ask you this, because the Lib Dems, they're apparently civil war about this issue. So Ed Davey, their leader, he's pledged to oppose official guidance protecting women-only spaces. But again, well, they always use the word female. No, you don't. They don't take the word woman. There's only one kind. There's no subset. Even though we've got this long-awaited advice from the Equality and Human Rights Commission, we've got that Supreme Court ruling. Lib Dem leaders written to Bridget Phillipson to demand that she withdraw the guidance, saying it was not fit for purpose. And he said the guidance was not clear enough, did not protect trans people from discrimination and harassment, and was not compatible with long-standing British values. Where are trans people being harassed? I mean, the idea that, well, they can't be in men's toilets because they'll get harassed by men. Oh, but we'll have men in women's toilets because that'll be safe for us. I mean, all these people, police forces, Gwent Police, Lib Dems, the hospitals, local authorities, just say, we simply won't obey the law.
And with the Liberal Democrats, I think it was a case of pick a side, and they've picked a side.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not the side of women. And I think that's really important to note. So people take note of the policies that they put forward now, because they're never going to be what we would assume.
This is not about hate trans people.
To keep women safe.
You can be trans, you do what you want, you just don't get to take other people's rights.
No,
it's just that simple.
And it's always women.
Always women.
It's always against women. We're the ones that have to just put up and shut up.
I just don't
Absolutely
know.
ridiculous.
It's a sanity test, guys. It's a sanity test. It's as simple as that. 11:37 is the time to take a quick break. Going to be talking to the former Labour Party spokesman, very much not Labour anymore, James Mathewson. He's up next. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 11:38 is the time. James Mathewson joins us now as a political commentator. He was, in a long distance past, a former Labour Party spokesman. Very much not anymore. Very good morning to you, James.
Good morning, Julia.
Now, I'm told you were a little bit unhappy with the conversation I've just had, so we'll come to that if we can in a couple of moments. But I want to talk about these Mandelson files going to be published later this afternoon in about 4 hours' time, possibly sooner than that. Hundreds of, we're told, bombshell texts and WhatsApps and emails regarding basically any contact anyone had about or to and from Peter Mandelson in the run-up to his appointment as our UK ambassador to the US and also while he was in office. Lots to talk about what we're not going to see. How damaging for the government do you think this is going to be?
Well, they kind of barely survived the last lot and kind of, limped through from the Mandelson issue.
That was just a few pages as well.
Yeah, and that, and there's been some distance put between them and the Mandelson files and the whole Mandelson appointment really now, because we've had, the big flare-up moments, the big flashpoints, Morgan McSweeney testifying to the Foreign Affairs Committee, all of those moments that allow the press to talk about that, make the media speak about it, they've all kind of died away. So this is another flare-up of this. And, the government has more control over this flare-up because obviously it's releasing them. So you would hope they have some kind of communication strategy around it and they'll probably be prepared for it. But it's still going to be a rough 24 hours ahead for them, make no mistake.
Well, this is one of the reasons, people felt that, Keir Starmer was done for. And quite apart from the fact he so blatantly, obviously lied in Parliament. I don't think that's even up for debate for anyone with eyes and ears over, what he did and didn't know. We know that he knew about the Jeffrey Epstein relationship. We knew it was, it was public in the public domain. We know also from previous document tranches released that he was aware that that there had been that there were concerns about his business dealings, his relationships with Russians and Chinese and the others, and that could be security risk. But we've been told since that he didn't know that he'd failed vetting, and again lots of different information about who knew that and who was told that. But we were told, were we not, by Ollie Robbins, the former permanent secretary who was sacked over this at the Foreign Office, that the mitigating things were going to be put into place so that although there were concerns about his business links, that could be a security issue, there would be mitigating factors put in place. There is apparently in this next tranche no evidence of this of these mitigations being put in place. So even though concerns were raised and the security services basically said, yeah, this guy can't pass vetting, he was given the job, he was given highest level of vetting, and it would appear no evidence that, according to those who apparently have seen the documents, so pretty sure they know what they're doing and they've been allowed to see everything, that no effort was made to make sure that he couldn't use his business contacts and benefit them all himself in the future. And given the current investigations that are taking place, and he's denied any wrongdoing related to what he's alleged to have done, which we revealed by the Epstein files in 2009 when he was a government minister under Gordon Brown, this is an extraordinary lapse in judgment by the government, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And look, you go into the detail there, which is important, Julia, but the minutiae of that detail will be lost on most people.
That's true.
The facts as they stand is that Peter Mandelson was given this job because he's Peter Mandelson, right? Nobody's denied that fact, right? Everything around the pros, supposedly, versus the cons as to why he got the job were because he's Peter Mandelson and he's able to do what Peter Mandelson does, which is join up the kind of dirty worlds of business involved in politics, the connections with Donald Trump, be able to try and work those rooms and network. He's a prolific networker. Who else was a prolific networker? Jeffrey Epstein as well. So, these people work in similar ways in similar worlds. That's why he was appointed to the role. Keir Starmer can say all day long whether or not he thinks that was appropriate or whether he based that on information he had at the time. The fact of the matter is, Keir Starmer acknowledged Peter Mandelson's kind of abilities, if you like, let's call them abilities, and appointed him because of that on the advice of Morgan McSweeney. I think Keir Starmer's biggest failing is trusting the people like Morgan McSweeney and Peter Mandelson.
But you have to
everybody in the Labour Party has.
You have to judge people based on, I mean, people say, well, it was my advisors. You appoint the advisors. I mean, he's gone through a hell of a lot of staff, with chiefs of staff, directors of communication. He's gone through more stuff. I mean, if you look back at Blair, who's been very much in the news in the last week, I mean, he had staff who stayed with him, for years and years at a time. Keir Starmer can't keep anyone for more than a few months.
Well, no, and I mean, Keir Starmer, it wasn't his political project. He was the head of it and the face of it, but it was Morgan McSweeney's political project. Yeah. Once McSweeney's gone, he's just kind of floating now, as we see him. He's just floating in space. I didn't like what was before with McSweeney because I don't think he had a vision for government, you see. He had a vision for winning elections. That's all right, but at some point you've got to ask yourself, why are you even wanting to win the election if you don't have a plan for what comes after?
Indeed. It's fascinating. Now, and I know, you've long left the Labour Party now, but in terms of what's going to happen in the future, we've got, of course, the Makerfield by-election, and Andy Burnham is still, technically the front runner, the Labour candidate, and if he gets in, he wants to be, vie to be Prime Minister. We're told that Keir Starmer's allies are desperate to try and keep him in office. They're going to plot to keep him in office for another 6 months. Whether or not there'll be a leadership contest or not, a lot of people seem to be throwing their hat into the ring. If Wes Streeting, apparently he's only got about 43 MPs who are backing him, not the 81 he needs to force an election. Whether he goes for it, but he's certainly, he's pushing for things like, dropping the ban on new licences in North Sea for oil and gas investigations and drilling. He's talking about dropping the tax on jobs, the national insurance rise that Rachel Reeves brought in. He's suddenly changed his tune on a lot of key Labour policies. He's pushing. We're told that Darren Jones, another key figure in the government, apparently rates his chances. Numerous other figures, Ed Miliband and others. Now we're told that there's possibilities that Andy Burnham, if he did get in and became Prime Minister, he'd want to go for an early election, quick snap election, poll bounce, new guy in his T-shirt, not his shirt and tie, much better communicator, go for the poll, and then try and get a mandate for his own policies. What do you think the chances of any of this happening?
Yeah, the thing is, Andy Burnham has learned the lessons of the Labour Party, right? He knows them, and he's done the crucial thing I think everybody should do, every prospective leader, and leave London, right? You need to get out of London. And he's gone to the regions, and he's kind of honed his political message there over the years, reinvented himself many times. Yeah. He used to be a very boring Blairite in a grey suit with a tie, like all the rest of them. But the others now, the difference I'm seeing between him and the others is that the others are still pivoting around left, right, and centre, trying to find like a shopping list of demands that the British public might like. Well, if I did this, would you like this? If I did this, I'll go any way you want me to go. Right? That's actually not what people are wanting. What people are wanting is somebody who actually believes in what they're saying, right? I will say this for the likes of Donald Trump, for Nigel Farage, for the populist forces, even people like Zach Polanski, right? The appeal to their supporters is the fact that they truly believe what is coming out of their mouth. Yeah. With Keir Starmer, with Wes Streeting, with people like that, we've never seen any of that. It's just, I will do whatever you want me to do. Yeah. And it's a bit like a relationship, Julia, right? If you're dating, right? It just looks beggy, doesn't it? You look like a beg.
I love it.
You look like a beg.
But also, it's not joined up thinking, is it? It's just not a coherent. No. Okay, so if we drop that tax, we'll get the money from that. We'll get, and thinking it through as a whole and having a coherent philosophy. And we know the interesting thing is actually in politics is how many people voters do reward politicians they believe are honest, which is interesting. I thought an interesting stat, this polling of major trade unions, discovering that actually Labour support has plummeted from about 48% to about 28%, and at the same time, neck and neck with Reform. So as many people who are members of a trade union, you'd think far more likely to be Labour voters, are now also saying they would be voting Reform. That is very telling, isn't it?
Very worrying as well, as a trade unionist my whole life, because Reform are not a party of the trade unions, right? The Greens would be closer to being a party of trade union affiliation. Reform would never be able to affiliate with any of the trade unions. The trade unions at their core are progressive and about workers' rights and all of the rights, right? And
well, you can have, isn't Reform's point, you can have workers' rights, but you only have them if you've got a job.
No, I'm sorry. That's not what Reform are about at all. You don't take £5 million from a tech investor in Thailand if you're about workers' rights. They work.
I don't think that those things are mutually exclusive. But I'm not happy about the £5 million, I'll tell you that.
They're a party of millionaires and private business influence, from Zia Youssef to Richard Tice to Farage himself. They are
What's
not
wrong
about
with people being
rights.
well off?
It's not nothing wrong with being about well off, but it's about furthering that. Why would Richard Tice move to Dubai to pay less
Well,
tax.
he doesn't live in Dubai. He lives in England. He doesn't live in Dubai. He lives in England. He lives in England. I'm telling you categorically, he lives in England.
Well, the whole
his partner lives in
Dubai. This is the fascinating thing we've seen with this shift, right? I'm not denying that there is a shift in that poll, and of course there is. And I think the Labour Party, having abandoned the Labour movement, is paying the price for that, right? But what I will say is that when it comes to reform, if any worker in this country thinks that they're going to have their best interests at heart, when all they do is shill for billionaires and millionaires and invested private interests from everything from.
I have to say, no. I mean, again, I don't want big money in our politics. We're agreed on that. But I tell you what, have you met the Blair government? I mean,
Yeah,
Tony
100%.
Blair went to a top private school for goodness sake.
Tony Blair, the other day in his essay, if you've read it, and by the way, I wouldn't recommend most people do, it's very boring. But if you actually read it, what he's doing is writing a manifesto for tech billionaires to get AI into the NHS. That's what he's doing.
There is certainly an interest there. I've only got about 1 minute left with you. Just finally, James Murray, the Health Secretary, says he would no longer say that trans women are women. That's a good thing, isn't it? He's no longer either insane or a liar.
No, he's a coward. He's traded his values and the things that he once stood for or pretended to stand for to actually get the job and to be the health minister. Now, Julia,
a liar. Wait a minute. Wait. What values are you trading in by not claiming something we know to be factually untrue?
By standing against people like you, Julia, who bash trans people constantly.
I don't bash trans people.
Find
one example. Never bash trans people.
Before I just joined this interview, I had to listen to two of the most bigoted people I've ever heard, right? In any reasonable society, in any of the circles I move in, those people would consider to be bigoted, hate-filled, and probably haven't left the house.
I don't think anyone expressed any hate.
Those kind of people are not welcome around me. But I tell you who is. The trans people who are marginalised, any marginalised.
Who's marginalising trans people?
You are spending hours talking about. Because, you talk
Only
about
because they're taking my sexist spaces. They're invading and taking my rights and my daughter's rights and my sister's rights.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it, Julia. You know why I don't buy it? Because you're spending your whole time talking about the threat of trans women to women when you're not bothered about the threat of Donald Trump, a rapist, the threat of Nigel Farage, a man who stands with Conor McGregor and Andrew Tate.
He doesn't stand with Andrew Tate, but also Donald Trump. I hold no candle for Donald Trump in his personal life. James Matthews. I've said I believe him to be a sexual. I've been very, very, very clear about that. But Donald Trump is not walking into changing rooms in M&S when my daughter's in there trying on a bra. So it's not an issue, mate. Listen. Saying that trans women are women is factually, biologically, provably, scientifically untrue. Trans women, by definition, are trans-identified men. They are men. They are not women. They're not women.
They're not, and the Supreme Court ruling was incorrect. They are not. If you speak to
everything we've ever known about biology is incorrect.
If you let me finish with one thing, because I know we're limited to time. What I will say, Julia, is trans women are women, trans men are men. The predators are in power, and those people like Donald Trump are pointing to trans people to blame them. It's projection for their own crimes as rapists.
Okay, trans women are women. This mug is a table. Because I'm just making up the definition of words. This is a table. And if you don't believe that, James, you are a bigot.
Yeah.
That's literally what you've just said to me.
You are the one who espouses bigotry on this front.
I've never been bigoted. I'm not bigoted. I express no hate. If a man believes he's a woman, he either has suffering from a mental health issue, it used to be called gender dysphoria, or he is lying and he's wanting to gain access to women's spaces for nefarious reasons.
Or it's
a fetish. There are only 3 reasons why men would claim that.
Okay, so one of your reasons there, famously, so men have to dress up as a woman to infiltrate spaces and rape them. I don't think that's true when the President of the United States can rape women and get away with it and be the president.
Men have been able to rape women forever and continue.
Nobody is dressing up as a woman to access women's spaces.
They literally are. They literally, James, you need to keep up on the crime stats, my darling.
The most powerful man in the world.
Why are you talking about Donald Trump? It's got something to do with Donald Trump.
Impunity. He sends a message to all the rapists.
Listen, James, I'm going to win this. It's got nothing to do with him. No, it's got nothing to do with him. American people voted for him. More for them on that front, on that particular issue. Okay, here's the thing. It's very, very simple. When when vast majority of violent and sex crimes against women are committed by other women, yeah, then we'll worry about the women. Women want safe spaces to get changed, to go to the toilet, because men are a physical threat, and we don't know which men are. And the stats are very clear. The men who identify as trans have exactly the same criminal rate as non-trans identified men. And that's why we don't want any men in any of our spaces. And that's not bigoted. I'm going to have to end the conversation now. I get the last say because it's my show. This is Talk, Home of Common Sense.
They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You know, you've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Well, that got a bit heated. I had to end it. I do like just going to go to a break. 11:56 is the time. We don't have time to talk to Andrew Fox now because I've been screaming at James Matthews. Yeah, I just love being called a bigot for stating biological and legal fact. But there we are. And the story keeps coming up because there are still so many crazy people telling us lies, and it makes me crazy. Andrew Fox very kindly has agreed to move just a little bit later, so really appreciate that, Andrew, if you're still listening to the show. But Claire Pearsall, it is unbelievable that we've still got people, a lot of them men, although a lot of women, the handmaidens, the trans maidens, I think they're known as now, who will just happily just say, no, you poor trans people are put up on. You talk about you can have whatever rights you want. No one's having a go at you. You just don't get to take women's rights.
But that's the point. Nobody is discriminating against them. They have rights. They are
the same rights as everyone else.
Precisely. So why is it women then that have to make room and make concessions and have their spaces taken over that we fought really hard to get? And I just look at my son, who is 17, would be utterly horrified.
He'd be mortified to be in.
To go in any kind of space with women because he would just be embarrassed and shouldn't be there.
I was changing rooms in a shop the other day, and it was a massive queue for the ladies. And well, I thought it was the ladies on the ladies' floor. I ended up walking upstairs and just sort of going, hold on a minute. Oh, all the changing rooms are mixed. In that case, well, I may as well be on the floor of the smaller queue. But genuinely, you're just like, no, this is really inappropriate. We had numerous times when men are caught, basically camera overlooking. I don't think they want to see me, but there was a lot of very attractive girls, young girls there, because they might have wanted to see. And it really, really is mind-blowing to me that people are still doing this. And I really do think that we just need to be very, very clear. People need to start boycotting. We just need to be really clear. Or in the case of Gwent Police, who said they simply won't obey the rules on single-sex spaces for their own officers. Imagine, after all the revelations we've had about the horrific stuff going on behind the scenes with some, not all male officers, the vast majority of men are good men who was horrified by this as possible. The trouble is, it's really unhelpful. The men who would sexually assault or would stalk or would abuse or would peeping toms or would rape. Really unhelpfully, they don't have it written on their forehead. No. They don't wear T-shirts saying, I'm a rapist, I'm a risk to you. We don't know who's a risk. Our children, our daughters don't know who's a risk. So we have to assume that all men are. That's the terrible thing. When you're walking home at night, when you're in an enclosed space, that's what women do. Instinctively, you have to assume that all men are a risk, and that's why all men who are good men make sure they make it clear that I'm not one of those men. And a man who insists on... All these men saying, I feel like a woman. If you really felt like a woman, you would understand why other women, the real ones, would find that threatening.
Precisely. You would understand why we're in such a bad mood about it. It's nothing to do with being bigoted. It's just that these are hard-won rights that are being taken away.
But you know what? I mean, again, just like the racist word doesn't work anymore when you're saying it, when people are just making statements about
genocide.
facts. Or genocide is baby killer, bigot, transphobe. Those words don't work anymore because you have taken away all their meaning. But when people are simply protecting their rights, I think you can vouch for anyone who's listened to my show. We discussed this issue for 10 years. I have never, ever been disparaging about trans people, but let's not pretend it is anything other than the three options I gave to Jones. Those are the three options. Lots more to talk about. We're going to have the wonderful Kate Hoey on next. Then we're going to talk to Andrew Fox, take your calls as well. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. This is Talk. Oh, good afternoon. Apologies. It's just past midday, 2 minutes past midday. This is Talk, the home of common sense, whether you're listening on DAB Plus Radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device. Great to have you join me. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Joining me in the studio is Claire Pizzle, former Conservative government advisor. I'm apparently a bigot, so that's always good to know from my last guest, who apparently have, because I just don't think that men are women. You know, that makes you bigot these days. Shrug, shrug, duck, water off my back. Do not care anymore. I'm just so over being called names. Just don't care anymore. I would like to say, as if I were a teenager, I'd say, like, I speak my truths. No, I just do facts. It's just the facts. Opinions based on facts. Men ain't women. Trans women are men. Don't care. Not playing anymore. Haven't been playing for the last 10 years. Don't intend to start now. Anyway, if you missed that, we're going to put it on YouTube, put it out on X. You might want to have a look at that debate. quite heated. But anyway, do go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. If you missed anything, hit subscribe, never have to miss a thing. Coming up, we're going to discuss the news in about 3.5 hours, possibly sooner. Hundreds more files related to Lord Mandelson's appointment as the UK's ambassador to the US will be published. Meanwhile, Scotland Yard has asked Number 10 to withhold publishing key files amid fears they could compromise its criminal investigation and any subsequent trial. And criminals on benefits should get ration cards to stop them spending taxpayers' money on booze and fags, the Conservatives have said. But will it work? There's the question. Rachel Reeves is considering a return to Blair-style private sector deals to fund major building projects, because, of course, those PFI projects have absolutely gone swimmingly. Is it £80 billion worth of debt for £13 billion of expenditure? I mean, what a bargain. I'm telling you for quite some time, Rachel Reeves has a broken abacus. It's the only explanation. Anyway, Claire Pinsett was still with us. Claire, I mean, we'll get to all of that. We're going to talk to Baroness Kate Hoey in just a quick second. Those Mandelson papers coming out very frustratedly after my show is over. But I wonder whether we would be able to go through 1,000 pages. We'll be on there going, hold on a minute, we're going to go to a break. We're going to read another few pages in the break. Do you think there's going to be, the killer fact, the killer moment? Is there going to be something that's going to mean that Starmer, who is already, as a crawling wounded, who we know already had lied to Parliament, who his MPs think this isn't going to last? Do you think there's going to be a killer fact in there that's going to go, right, he's definitely toast?
No, I think it's more sort of death by 1,000 paper cuts with this one. It just adds to what we already know. It adds to the narrative that he had a really bad judgment over Peter Mandelson. But is it going to make any difference? The majority of the people outside on the street just think, we've done this. Yeah. We know that he was a wrong 'un and he shouldn't have been in that position, and they've moved on. Putting all of this stuff out with who sent WhatsApps to whom and what time.
There's going to be a lot of that, though, isn't there? It's going to be like this Matt Hancock WhatsApp.
Exactly, which isn't going to interest anybody else. It doesn't move the story on any further, I think.
I think it's going to be a lot of the front pages. That's it. I think a lot of us, it was very, very telling. For instance, why were our kids put in masks for 8 hours a day at school? Well, because Nicola Sturgeon had put the kids in Scotland in masks. And Matt Hancock didn't want to have the political battle, even though they knew it wasn't necessary. I think it's quite useful to know that is how slapdash policy is made, and why the COVID inquiry is so useless.
I don't disagree, but I don't think it's going to make any difference to the grand scheme of things with Mandelson.
We already know what we think.
Know that. Yeah. People have made up their minds. They know what they've seen. They know what they've read, and they know the history of the individual. So from that point, what is more interesting and more damaging is the national security concerns, which you spoke about earlier. I think that is something we need to be a lot more interested in, and that information needs to be sort of highlighted to us as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about this with Baroness Kate Hoey. She's an independent peer and former Labour MP. A very good afternoon to you, Kate.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Thank you for joining. So what do you think that we're going to see in these Mandelson files then? Do you think we are going to get this sort of killer document that's like, right, that's it, Keir, you're off?
No, I think probably the most interesting ones are the ones that have been held back by the police. And I do think on that while they obviously have made their decision that it's in the interest of their investigation, we must have some kind of time thing on this. I mean, how long will this investigation go on? I mean, it could go on for another year or so.
And the rest,
yeah, exactly. And so that, but also I think the other interesting thing will be more embarrassment for individual cabinet ministers who will discover that they have, been texting with Mandelson. Now, apparently, he's the one who, in many cases, actually started the texting. But of course, if they've responded and how they've responded, I think that would be quite interesting.
Is they going to be grovelling away and telling him how wonderful he is?
They will be.
The thing is, though, should we be judging people? Because I'm wondering, as I said a bit earlier on the show, the number of people will all sit in judgment. Oh, these lying toads of ministers and MPs, they're all two-faced. How many times have you had a message from a colleague or a family member, or a boss or something, and you're going, oh yeah, of course, that's a great idea. No, I completely agree. And you turn around to someone else or message someone else and gone, what a load of nonsense! I mean, come on, everyone does it.
Yes, I think there's some truth in that. We all know our own ways of dealing sometimes with horrible messages or messages that you don't agree with. But the reality is, of course, if it was as a cabinet minister, then you're in a very different position because you are bound by all the other rules that go along. You know, when you're a minister, you really have to be watching every single thing you do, and your private office usually tell you can't do this, or you should do that, or please don't do that, or I think that would be better not to do that. That's the kind of thing that goes on. So this, you know, I think it will be embarrassing, but it's, you know, I think it won't actually change anything that I know we're not allowed to talk about, but anything that's happening in the next week or two.
Yeah, well, no, we can't because I've mentioned Makerfield earlier. I'm going to have to read out the names anyway, so I want to come on to that because but Andy Burnham, the Labour candidate, is still the lead candidate. But in this bizarre situation, if you want to keep the current Labour government, in fact, if you want to keep the current Prime Minister, you should vote. You should basically vote Reform as the next candidate. You know, as the number two, according to the polls. We know how people vote on the day may be very different. But if you want to actually oust the Prime Minister, you should vote Labour. We've even had Keir Starmer say he would go campaign for Andy Burnham in Makerfield, which would be hilarious and would no doubt absolutely infuriate Andy Burnham because, of course, I mean, everyone wanted Keir Starmer away from the local election trail because he was toxic. But we've got people apparently close to Keir Starmer saying, you know, they're going to try and keep him in office until the end of the year. Even if Burnham gets in, there could be a long leadership challenge. Wes Streeting apparently hasn't got his 81 MPs yet. It's only got about half there, but he's on manoeuvres. He's talking about, you know, ending the national insurance hike, the jobs tax, more licences for drilling in the North Sea, a key, you know, net zero policy of the government he wants to backtrack on. Andy Burnham seems to just have a different policy every 3 minutes, depending on what the latest focus group says. And now we've got Darren Jones, who you might ask, throwing his hat into the ring apparently and thinking that he might be a player if the job comes up. What do you think? You've been around, you've seen them, you've counted them in and counted them out over the years. You were in the party. What do you think happens?
Well, I think that both Wes Streeting and Darren Jones, if he does put his name forward, have an opportunity at the moment now to say things that are being listened to, because Andy Burnham obviously is tied up day to day, you know, picture after picture of him out on the doorstep and saying things, but he still manages to change his mind on a few things. I think that Darren Jones is the person who always appears on television and never ever smiles. He's very, very, very grim. I was on a European select committee with him, and he's just like he was then. So I don't think, you know, personality-wise, charisma-wise, leadership-wise, he'd be looking at difference.
He really would be the Starmer continuity candidate, wouldn't he?
Yes, with no personality. But if in fact Andy Burnham was to win and to become the MP, you're right, it'll take quite a long time unless the Prime Minister decided to resign or to say that he was definitely leaving at the conference. He doesn't seem at the moment that he wants to even think about that. So, you know, that if there is going to be a challenge, these things take time. And it does mean that every individual MP has to sit back and say, is this what I really want? You know, and then they're going to have to jump, because many of them have been sitting on the fence, probably getting.
Yes, they are. They're literally going, who's going to be my best bet? But this is the thing, you know, it's going to take a long time. And bearing in mind, we've got that price cap rise for energy bills coming in July. Okay, it's the summer, but if you're on direct debit, certainly might kind of averaged out over the year. That's going to be a big lump sum increase for a lot of people, and then, with no sign right now, we'll talk about this topic next, of the Iran conflict being over anytime soon, the Strait of Hormuz being open. We've still got that oil price hike, you know, and more of those financial hits to come. The stats on, you know, young people not working and unemployment rising are not good. The longer that all drags out and people feel, you know, the cost of living rise and the uncertainty, none of that plays very well for the Labour Party. And then we've got, you know, Andy Burnham talking about a snap election if he gets in, because he thinks there'll be such a poll bounce. I mean, the Daily Mail ripping the mick out of him on the front page, basically saying, you haven't even won the by-election yet, mate, and even that is on a knife edge.
Yes, I mean, the economic situation is not going to get any better, even if the this Straits of Hormuz were open very, very soon. It's things are, but I do think that the idea of a mock election or a mock, might be a mock one in Mercury. But I think a general election now, obviously other parties would love it, but there's no way. There's no way.
I don't know if they would. I don't think Reform or the Tories are remotely ready. Green Party, yes, because Zach Polanski will find out even more over the next few months and years. But other than that...
I think the crucial thing is the big Labour majority of Labour MPs. Yeah. Many of them will know they're finished, and they're not going to vote for anybody who, in a leadership election, who's threatening, even suggesting that they might have a general election.
And there is no constitutional requirement for it, and there wasn't when Labour were calling for it, the Tories.
Oh no, absolutely not. And so it's a bit hypocritical, really, for the Conservatives to call for that.
There's a couple of things I want to ask you about. Rwanda has been in the news this morning. This is a court in The Hague, the Permanent Court of Arbitration in the Netherlands, The Hague, that has basically ruled that the UK government doesn't have to pay Rwanda millions of pounds, apparently some £100 million that it is. But Rwanda claims it's still owed over that asylum deal it had to build all those properties, that accommodation for failed asylum seekers to be shipped out there. We know that an extraordinary sum of money, 700 million quid of taxpayers' money, was spent to send for volunteers. They weren't even deported. We paid them to go to Rwanda. More Home Secretaries went to Rwanda in that time than anyone who was deported. But probably good news, we don't have to pay an extra 100 million quid of taxpayers' money.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think people probably felt that we ever should, but even if they'd ruled that we should, I think there would have been quite a discussion about whether we should actually pay it just because a court has told us to. Yeah. I mean, it was a terrible sadness, I think, that we didn't try it. It could have been tried. It may not have worked, but it's certainly nothing that has been done by the government since has worked in terms of the people coming across. And we're going to see more and more as the weather improves over the summer. And it's not changing.
No, absolutely. And finally, I've got to ask you about Nicola Sturgeon. Unusual, completely unusual for her, because she's never done this before. And I always, despite disagreeing with her on many different things, I'd always admired the fact she'd never played the woman card, the way a lot of left-wing politician women do, political women. But she has basically said she's serving a sentence for a crime that she did not commit. She said she knew nothing about her husband, Peter Murrell, embezzling £400,000 from the SNP, despite the fact that she was leader of the party. He was chief executive. There's photographs of her with the 80 grand Jag, carrying the designer handbags, using the Mont Blanc phones, using the 2-3 grand coffee machine in her kitchen, which apparently she never went in, according to John Swinney, and apparently completely unaware of a £125,000 motorhome parked on her mother-in-law's driveway. And she did visit her mother-in-law, we know this, but also visible on Google Earth. I mean, a lot of people, the memes online are hilarious. People are just mocking her. She got tearful in an interview with Laura Kunsberg yesterday. What's your reaction to what she had to say in her claims that she's the wronged person in this? She's the victim.
Yeah. Well, I watched it thinking that I might end up having some sympathy for her, but I didn't actually. It just as you said, all those things just show. It's just impossible. It certainly shows that she wasn't living like any ordinary, in inverted commas, person in a marriage, because most people know quite a lot about what's going on in there.
Especially most women, even in a high-powered job.
Exactly. And I think that's she was always one who never did, as you say, play the woman sort of victim. I'm a woman, so you're, misogynistly getting at me. And I think that was probably quite disappointing. But, she still has a question to answer, because she was the leader of the party. That's the crucial thing. And he was the chief exec. Now, the whole thing probably was a bit rather strange to start with, to have those two very important jobs. Yeah. But anyway, she did her best, and she obviously got prime time, but I don't think it will change one single person's view of what she was involved with.
Absolutely. Kate Hoey, Baroness Hoey, independent peer, former Labour MP, always so good to get your thoughts on everything. Thank you very much. Because we mentioned Makerfield, we did it the last hour as well. Going to read out all the Makerfield candidates. Go and put the kettle on. I don't know. Go and get a coffee from one of your four £9,000 coffee machines that your husband bought that you didn't notice. That's just urgent. Remember, She's the victim in all this. Makerfield candidate standing in that by-election. Jake Austin for the Liberal Democrats. Count Binface for the Count Binface Party. It's not fair having to read these out. Andy Burnham, the Labour Party. Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party. John Dyer, Independent. Ed Gemmell, Climate Party. Paul Gould, Independent. Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official monster raving loony party. Robert Kenyon, Reform UK. Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild. Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain. Sarah Wakefield, Green Party. Peter Ward, Rejoin EU. Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party. Let's take a quick break. I want to hear from you, your thoughts on all the topics we're talking about. Nicola Sturgeon, we've had another trans row. I'm apparently a bigot because I don't think men are women. I'm old-fashioned like that. What you make of those Mandelson documents coming out? What do you think we are going to learn? Do you get in touch on all of that? 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Up next, we are going to talk about what is going on in both Lebanon and in the Iran conflict with Andrew Fox. This is Talk.
They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You know, you've got the welfare state, I've already said, wonderful thing, isn't it? But a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. Delighted to say at 12:21, Andrew Fox joins us, Senior Associate Fellow at the Henry Jackson Society now, and he's also a former Major in the Parachute Regiment and somebody who's been in the Middle East an awful lot in the last few years, following things closely on the ground. Andrew Fox, good afternoon to you.
Hi, Julia.
Great to have you join us. Apologies for not getting to you earlier. I was busy being called a bigot.
I saw. It was a very enlightening conversation.
All part of life's rich tapestry, Andrew. Let's talk about what's going on in the Iran conflict. Let's talk about what's been going on over the weekend and overnight when it comes to actually exchanges of drones and gunfire between the Americans and the Iranians, but also Kuwait involved too.
Yeah, it's all low-key stuff still. There's no resumption of full combat operations or anything of that sort. We've got essentially a tit-for-tat situation, I think is what it boils down to.
And that's quite common in a ceasefire, though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you know, a ceasefire and a double blockade, of course.
Yeah.
We learned today that some 40 ships have been escorted through Hormuz in the last 3 weeks, which is, you know, a bit of a come down from 100 to 150 a day, which is what we saw before the war.
And is it escorted by the Americans or the Iranians who?
It sounds like it's a deconfliction between the both. So right. The Americans are seeing people through after they have deconflicted with the Iranians. So again, it's both sides here.
And this will probably be ships heading to China or India or someone else who's they're friendly with.
Well, the suggestion is that these are Qatari ships that have been allowed to go through.
Right.
Clearly a major ally, a major investor in Donald Trump's presidency. Mm-hmm. And a previous quite tight ally with Iran, although obviously that fractioned with Iran.
And giver of private jet, yes.
Indeed.
Okay, so there's sort of some stuff happening behind the scenes, and we're constantly told by Donald Trump that look, there is a deal, is coming close. We were told last week, discussing on the show, I think on Thursday, that there was possibly this nuclear deal. They would give up enriching uranium. I mean, do you think that is what whoever is negotiating on behalf of the Iranian government via Pakistan is willing to do? And B, can we trust a single word the Iranians say anyway?
Well, look, we're in between two stools right now, and it's very clear that it's going to go one way or the other. Either Mr. Trump comes away with a deal that secures Iran's nuclear uranium enrichment and makes sure that the Strait of Hormuz is fully reopened without Iranian direct control, or we end up with some kind of a fudge which achieves neither of those things. And frankly, that would then make this war the most embarrassing strategic disaster for the Americans, probably since Vietnam. That's how bad this is. If Iran retains control over the Strait of Hormuz, retains its nuclear capability, then America has spent billions of dollars and has achieved almost nothing. So it's going very much going one way or the other at this point. The question is, if they do get the deal, if Mr. Trump gets this security of Hormuz, if he gets the uranium, what's he going to have to pay for it? And that's the other big question. And I suspect a lot of the delay here is trying to find a way to give the Iranians some of what they want without Mr. Trump being able to be criticised for giving them money back.
So, I mean, both sides want to be able to claim that they've got some sort of victory, but yeah, I mean, the thing is, just reopening the Strait of Hormuz and a promise to stop enriching uranium, which we know isn't worth the paper it's printed on, will just get us back to status quo antebellum.
Yeah, pretty much. It was obvious right from the start. They didn't declare it outright, but it was very obvious that they were trying to achieve regime change. Hence the big strike on day one on the Iranian leadership. So it was very confusing at the time. There were a lot of rumours about the Kurds in the northwest of Iran getting armed. The Kurds then vehemently denied it, and it sounds like it was always the plan to arm them and have them surge in from the northwest and then hope that other ethnic groups would rise up as well. None of that happened. So regime change didn't happen. Which means that America and Israel are now left with trying to manage the consequences of not securing the Strait of Hormuz off the bat, which is the first thing you should do if you genuinely want to attack Iran and remove their leadership. You secure Hormuz first, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it is such an abject strategic failure, that, isn't it? It's quite extraordinary. Let's talk also about the implications of it. You're not just dealing with just one conflict. You're also dealing with a number of others as well. You've got in terms of dealing with Israel is a big party to this, dealings with Hamas, but also crucially at the moment with Hezbollah in Lebanon. And Israel has seized a castle in Lebanon. They've gone a sort of further north in southern Lebanon than they've gone for a very long time, a strategic site of Beaufort Castle. Now, as always, when I watch any BBC reports, sometimes I'm trapped underneath something heavy, I can't reach the remote control, and it happens. But as always with these reports, it's always reported as the Israelis, for some unfathomable reason, have decided to invade or bomb Lebanon. And no one can work out why, other than the fact they're obviously all horrible, nasty civilian and mostly baby killers. I mean, that's same reason. Like, why on earth are they in Gaza? No one can understand what could possibly have happened to make them do that. Can you explain, just very briefly, for the hard of hearing at the back, and we'll send this to the BBC, why Israel, for no good reason at all out of the blue, decided to start bombing Lebanon, including the capital city Beirut, and invading southern Lebanon?
Well, it's been the category error that we've seen since 7th of October is to describe this as 7 separate wars. It's not. It's one war. All of it stems from Tehran. It stems from the Iranian regime. They built a proxy network across the Middle East in 6 different countries, and then Tehran itself, designed to destroy Israel. Let's be very clear. That's what they did. Sinwar went early on 7th of October. On 8th of October, Hezbollah opened fire on Israel, and tens of thousands of Israelis had to be evacuated from northern Israel. They had to leave their homes, go to refugee hotels elsewhere in the country. We saw Northern Arrows, the operation by the Israelis in 2024, that essentially degraded Hezbollah incredibly heavily, removing a lot of their rocket stocks, removing a lot of their commanders, including, of course, their leader in Lebanon. But unfortunately, since the start of the Iran war, Hezbollah has returned to firing into northern Israel. And so Israel is essentially trying to clear a buffer zone so that its people can live in safety and security.
Yeah, I mean, this is quite a basic requirement. And again, in no other country in the world would put up with or would be expected to put up with that level of bombardment. And it's fascinating, all the talk about how civilians are being killed and how these attacks on on civilian property. But of course we know that, and it's well documented, and even some of the pictures that have been put out by sympathetic Hezbollah figures themselves have shown civilian housing but with a rocket launcher inside. They routinely put their weaponry hidden, as they've done as Hamas did in Gaza, in civilian homes, haven't they?
They have. And look, I was there in January this year and I saw it with my own eyes. A lot of the settlements in southern Lebanon were actually set up as forward fighting positions. So every single house has got some sort of military connection to it. And, I went into a Hezbollah tunnel in a place called Maroun al-Ras, which is just over the border from Avivim in Israel. The entrance was in a graveyard. The tunnel ran for 2 kilometers underneath a mountain or a hill. And it was full of arms, it was full of uniforms, it was full of weapons designed that they could flood across the border and attack Israel. And this is what the Israelis are dealing with. Now, is raising every house justified? Well, they'll have to do that on a house-by-house basis, and they'll have to, account for their targeting decisions there. But the fact is absolutely indisputable that Hezbollah has fully militarized the entirety of the south of Lebanon in breach of their UN, 1701 is the UN resolution that says they're not allowed to do anything south of the Litani. So, huge UN failure. UNIFIL have completely failed to enforce.
It's supposed to be a complete sort of, not no man's land, but a neutral buffer zone, isn't it?
Exactly. And so Israel have, I think, reasonably said, right, if you will insist on moving into positions to attack us, we are going to drive you back towards the north.
It's really that simple.
Horrible, for the civilians who live there, 1.5 million people potentially displaced. That's really a tragedy, and we shouldn't dodge around that. But what else would you do if you were sat in Jerusalem making these decisions? If this was Scotland and the Scots were within 10k of our border firing into
Don't
Newcastle,
give them ideas, Andrew.
What would you expect the British government to do in order to secure those northern cities? And it's the same thing here. Everyone can criticise Israel, but no one ever gives an alternative. Like, what would you do if you're in that position? They say ceasefire. Yvette Cooper pushed out that statement yesterday saying Israel should stop and Hezbollah should stop. Well, cool. How are you going to make that happen?
Exactly. But also the crucial thing, again, this is a fight against not Lebanon, it's a fight against Hezbollah, a terrorist army, one of the most well-equipped, terrorist large armies, I think the largest terrorist army in the world, massively outnumbering the Lebanese army and police force combined, not controlled by the Lebanese government. But it's also, as you and others and Philip Ingram, who's a regular in the studio, have pointed out, this is also one of the biggest, drug dealing, people trafficking, child sex trafficking, criminal organisations in the world. These are nasty, bad people, and everyone should be on Israel's side in this battle, including the people of Lebanon, as they actually, certainly, the large Christian population there absolutely are.
Yeah, that's right. And look, Hezbollah have a presence on 3 continents. They certainly run arms and people into Europe. And drugs into Europe. This is an enemy of all of us. They are also a direct proxy of the Iranian regime. Israel killed so many of the Lebanese Hezbollah commanders that the IRGC have actually put Iranian IRGC commanders into fight in Lebanon now.
That pager attack was beyond beautiful.
Yeah, one for the ages, without a doubt. But this is where Israel is. And the problem Israel has here is that how do they finish it? They don't have it within their gift to remove Hezbollah completely. The Lebanese government don't have the ability to do that either. So what it needs is actually meaningful international action. That if we really want this to stop, if we really want people in Lebanon and northern Israel to live in peace, the international community needs to step up rather than keep issuing press releases condemning the Israelis.
Absolutely. Andrew Fox, Senior Associate Fellow at the Andrew Jackson Society, thank you very much indeed for that. Claire Pissell, former Conservative Government Advisor, listening to all of that. It's a complicated business. We often actually end up not covering the conflict because we sort of seem to be the same year. We're close to peace, still not close. But, it is more complicated than that. But a lot of it comes back to, the attack by Hamas and the counter-attack by the Israelis in Gaza, which is, what would our government, what would the American government, the British government, the French government, German government, Spain, what would any of them do in the same scenario with Hamas and with Hezbollah?
And it's always a case of Israel need to stop doing whatever it is they're doing. But what is the alternative? And why is it always Israel when Hezbollah have not behaved well towards their own citizens, let alone other people?
And the BBC reports, and the Sky's just as bad. The amount of times that their reports to say, Israel has attacked. And then about 8 paragraphs in, after a hail of rocket attacks from Hezbollah. Oh, so it didn't just happen out of the blue then. There was a reason why they did that. I mean, I do wonder, do people genuinely think that we in Britain would just put up with that? We were just like, yeah, absolutely, we just put up with it day in, day out. Yeah. We just move people from... France started doing that to us. I'm not going to go Scotland. We have Scottish listeners. That we would just go, yeah, we'll just move everyone from Kent. Exactly, her home county. You haven't got water there at the moment. What do you care? You don't want to move it. No, we'll just move you from Kent and we'll just carry on letting the French do that. It's untenable for anyone to think that is the case. So why do we expect it from another country? It's madness. Anyway, talking of countries, talking of travelling, the FIFA World Cup 2026 is almost here, and thanks to Adidas, the tournament's official match ball supplier, our friends at TalkSport, just down the corridor, giving you the chance to be there. Adidas is sending you and a friend, happy to be that friend as always, to Dallas to see England v Croatia live on June the 17th with return flights, accommodation, spending money tickets and your very own Adidas official match ball Trionda. Be at England's first game in the FIFA World Cup at one of the world's best stadiums. Ready to get that winning feeling? Well, here's how to enter.
Get ready for that winning feeling. For your chance to win, head to TalkSportWin.com or text TALK to 83338. Texts and online entries cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 1st of June 2026 at 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus UK residents only. This is a network promotion. See full terms and conditions at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. Full T's and C's at win.talk.tv.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back. 12:36 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Claire Pearsall's still with me. She's an ex-Home Office advisor. Don't boo at the back. We're going to get her thoughts on what my next guest has to say. I want to talk about various different police stories, some of them from the end of last week, some announcements today. Let's go to Chris Phillips. He's a former senior police officer. He's also former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. Very good afternoon to you, Chris. Hello.
I'm here. I think I got stuck. Sorry.
We got you there. Look, I want to talk to you about quite a lot of things, but let's get straight in, because we had an announcement from Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary for the Tories, that he basically, when you've got criminals who are on benefits, as a lot of them are, and he says in particular you've got people who've welfare claimants who've received a community or a suspended sentence, especially where alcohol, gambling or drugs were a factor in the offence. He says instead of just giving them benefits where they can spend on anything they want, he wants to introduce ration cards similar to the cards that are given to asylum seekers, which cannot be used in betting shops or in cash machines to get cash out. You can't buy alcohol with them. You can't transfer them to someone else. And basically, you're just going to basically say, well, if you're going to have hard-working taxpayers' money to fund your life, you can only buy the stuff you need, not that stuff which often gets you into trouble with the law. A, do you think that's a good idea? B, is it work? I mean, would it actually have any impact, and would it work?
Well, it sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? It sounds a great idea. However, in reality, we know it probably wouldn't work. it would add a whole new level of complexity and cost to giving out the finances. Would probably just make the whole thing worthless anyway. But also people find ways around this stuff, and it seems to be a good idea, but actually it's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, that's my thing. You think, whenever they were told these things they're not transferable, don't they? You think, are they? I mean, you usually find there is a way of doing that, don't you? They have the market. They'll just get half the value of it. But I don't believe in a lot of places these people are buying their stuff. Anyone at the local co-op is bothering to check the ID and matching it. I just simply don't believe that. But there we are. There's also again, latest nonsense idea. I mean, what we want is those people to be, frankly, behind bars, a lot of them. Let's be honest, that's the reality.
The actual dishing out of benefits like confetti is a whole societal issue, and it's talked about in other options, just not just around crime. People receiving huge amounts of money when they shouldn't do.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, a lot of the time we'd rather they're behind bars. I must ask you, I mean, just that the horrific case we had of the two teenage boys rapists and a third boy involved in egging them on and party to the gang rape, the repeated multiple gang rape of two girls, a 14-year-old and a now 15-year-old, one at knife point, put on social media and the like. And this has created an absolute outcry when they were given basically, to all intents and purposes, a slap on the wrist, community orders, rather than spending any time behind bars. That case is going to the Court of Appeal after being referred by the Attorney General. It's emerged over the weekend that there have been 3 other separate cases of rape where teenage boys have raped teenage girls in very similar situations where they've paid only, this is outrage, a fine, like they just little compensation like £26, not serving any time behind bars. We're constantly told we've got this crisis and we do, rape culture and we need to do more. We've got a Prime Minister who used to be Director of Public Prosecution saying, we need to have more cases brought to the courts and more convictions. What is the point of people being convicted of rape and girls going, or women, going to court and telling their story and living through the ordeal again, if the boys in this game, we were talking about 6 boys we now know of, and that's just the ones we know of, who've basically been given a slap on the wrist for one of the most heinous crimes they can convict. What is going on?
Well, I mean, occasionally you get a kind of searchlight that just picks out individual cases, which just goes to show the malaise of the criminal justice system, and any police officer, anyone that works in the criminal justice system actually will tell you that the whole thing is a bit of a joke. The sentences are poor, and not only that, these poor girls will have waited years to go to court, so they're living with that fear of court, because actually the victims going to court will find that a bigger distressing point than the suspects. So you can imagine just how bad this is, and as soon as you start looking and pulling back the rug, you'll see hundreds of other cases where justice has not been served.
I think more girls, more families are going to come forward and just say, hold on a minute, this happened in my case as well.
But other cases as well. It's not just, rape was always seen as one of the most heinous offences and almost would guarantee you prison time.
Yes.
So now judges are basically being told, probably, not to sentence in certain circumstances.
But it's bad. I mean, it's bad enough that someone who's a prolific shoplifter doesn't go behind bars. And again, people say these are kids. Sorry, 14. If you've had a 14 or 15-year-old, they know whether or not you're allowed to hold a girl at knife point and rape her multiple times in an underpass. They know. They know. But we're not sending shoplifters to jail, but we're told, we need to save prison for serious criminals. Well, here you go. Here are serious criminals, young offenders. I don't care whether they're 16, 18, 12. They're a danger. They're a danger to us.
The most dangerous people I've ever met, Julia, have been young offenders.
Yeah.
Really, really bad. And, it comes from their parents. It comes from their upbringing. Sometimes they're just absolutely evil, and they go on to be evil in their adult life as well. So we've got to deal with these people, and what doesn't help is certain sections of the media, as soon as something like this happens, they refer to people as children, whereas they're not. They are they may be underage, but they're actually know exactly what they're doing.
And have you seen the size of some 14 and 15-year-old boys lately? Exactly.
But there's always a desire to show a picture of them when they're 6 and really cute and lovely.
When they were a choir boy even, sometimes. But there we are. Let's also talk about this. Ministers are putting the UK at risk, we're told, by willingly turning a blind eye to gang smuggling, not just migrants, but drugs, on yachts. So not even the grumbly dinghies, but the yachts into Britain via little quiet villages. I have to say, I'm not surprised by this at all. The National Crime Agency campaign is aimed at encouraging the public to report suspicious vessels. There is absolutely no checking whatsoever of boats going in and out any of these small harbours, these little ports. I mean, what a surprise. I've always thought you stop the dinghies, they're just going to start using yachts and no one will be questioning anything.
The amount of movements of boats, and it's not only boats actually, it's general aviation as well. People have got aeroplanes, they've got runways in all sorts of places, and they can land without ever being seen in the UK. And I know that for a fact. It's our weak underbelly, the beaches, the ability now for boats to cross the channel very quickly in high-speed boats. Pull into locations that just do not have any police. We don't have enough police in our city centres, as if we're going to have enough police in Mevagissey in Cornwall to deal with this kind of drug.
Exactly. Let's also talk about another story. Again, came out. We've been talking. Well, we've talked about this case an awful lot when it first came to light. But the case of the Manchester Airport brawl that took place in July 2024. We initially remember we saw that footage of a police officer tackling a man on the floor, and then of course full video emerged, and we've had 2 trials for 2 men accused of assaulting police officers. We had originally we had Mohammed Ahmad and Mohammed Fahir Ahmaz. They both were convicted of assaulting 2 female officers. Ahmaz was convicted. Apologies, Ahmaz was convicted of assaulting 2 female police officers and a Starbucks customer. But the pair had denied assaulting the police constable Zachary Marsden. This is at Terminal 2 at Manchester Airport. 2 juries now have failed to reach verdicts at Liverpool Crown Court. It was announced that there would actually be they're both been behind bars during this time anyway, but the Crown Prosecution Service said they're not going to go for a second retrial, a third trial. A lot of people have seen the video. Now, because we've still got the possibility, extraordinarily, of the police officer facing prosecution for his role in those altercations, shall we say. We've all seen the video. We've seen it in full. 2 juries saw it in full. We've had convictions over the assaults on the police women, but not on the policeman. We've been defending jury trials constantly on this show, not going to cases where these things are decided by judges, not juries, because 12 men and women, good and true, are better at making these decisions. What do you make of those judgments?
Well, first and foremost, the CPS say it's not in the public's interest. Well, I'm a member of the public. It's in my interest, and it's probably in your interest as well, that criminals' obvious criminal activity is taken before the court until a decision is made. This was a horrendous attack on those police officers and the innocent victim as well in Starbucks. And you have to look at the knock-on effects. Would you want your son or daughter to be a policeman when the law that they are trying to work does not defend them? We need to have a situation where these people are prosecuted. They continue to be prosecuted, not until, of course, they're found guilty, but there is a verdict. And there's not a verdict, and I think jury trial has always been hit and miss. In the old days, in certain parts of the country, you could never get a prosecution for handling stolen property because everyone was at it. And similarly, if you get the wrong jury in place, you get a perverse decision.
Yeah, it is extraordinary. And just fun, I must ask you about this Henry Novak murder. We've in a bizarre situation where we've got the Prime Minister who went on his knee and made all these statements about the death of George Floyd. a man who died, saying, I can't breathe as police officers knelt on him. Absolutely horrific and unnecessary death of a very, very bad man, by the way. Not that made it justifiable, but all, couldn't stop pontificating on it. Black Lives Matter grabbed this absolute abject silence. I mean, literally, you could be in the desert. No one's making a sound over this horrific death of Henry Novak, a man who had been sniped to death, it would transpire, by another man, who, when the police turned up, this is Vikram Digwa, claimed to the police that that this man had used the P word, been racist against him. And even though Henry Novak was basically bleeding and saying to himself, I can't breathe, I've been stabbed, was handcuffed. And it does look very likely that he would not have died if the police had, just, even if they did believe what the assailant had said, pretending to be the victim, they had just prioritised getting a man who'd been stabbed to hospital. But their obsession with race and hate crime and doing the PC thing, quite literally as PCs, may well have caused Henry Novak's death. What do you make of that?
I think that's a little bit harsh,
No?
personally.
Okay.
I've been a police officer, Julia, and I've come up to a scene where there's some kind of altercation going on. The first thing that you've got to do is take control of the situation. Yep. And if that means handcuffing people, I've had so many people say to me, oh, I've been assaulted. Everyone gets assaulted, and you have to treat it, as you see it.
But if someone is saying, I've been stabbed, pull up his shirt, he's been stabbed, let's at least take him to hospital.
Yeah, well, I mean, my understanding was it was 4 minutes from the moment that they got there to realising that he had been stabbed. But listen, the police officers, I'm not disagreeing that police officers have been fed, are actually scared in many instances to deal with situations in a free and fair way. I have no doubt about that. It's certainly something that in past history, it wasn't an issue. Yep. It is now. And they've been fed that from senior officers, but they've also, it comes from the Stephen Lawrence inquiry. It comes from treating all victims as victims and making sure they're believed. And we have to understand the police are under complete scrutiny and difficulty.
Yeah, I think a lot of us want to see the body cam footage from everything. I think that we get
exactly. We don't know the full story yet, and I don't know how I would have dealt with it, Julia, if I had walked up that day.
Very interesting.
And I think we should retain a little bit of an open mind rather than immediately going to blame the police.
Okay, well, there you are then. Chris Phillips, thank you very much indeed for that. Appreciate you covered a lot of ground there. Claire Pearsall, your thoughts on the last story, if you want to come in?
Yeah, on the last story, I think that we need to see that body cam footage, because otherwise all you've got at the moment is an innocent person that was arrested, handcuffed, bleeding to death. Unless they clear that up, the trust in the police is already at an all-time low. It's going to be non-existent.
There seems to be no claims that he was being violent with the police. No. He was saying, again, this obsession. Oh well, if someone used the P word, which you shouldn't do that. Absolutely, it's arrestable. But nevertheless, it's not. We are not talking about the most heinous, awful crime in the world, are we? Really?
No, exactly. So therefore, we need to put it into perspective. Yeah. I think we need some transparency.
Absolutely. 12:50 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to talk about what on earth is Rachel Reeves up to? And for the love of God, can someone mend her abacus? This is Talk.
They found a label now, Ian, which allows them to sit at home on tablets, wasting their time.
Wow.
You've got the welfare state, I've already said. Wonderful thing, isn't it? but a safety net, not a way of life.
When you're talking about crimes as vicious as rape, if someone is capable of doing that, they're a threat to society.
If they don't know that all of these things are wrong, then by definition, we need them off the streets.
This is the worst one I've ever come across.
But it's where you've got with this woke, fluffy, liberal, progressive nonsense about anti-racism.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 12:53 is the time. Ian Collins in just a few moments. Delighted to be joined now by the Campaigns Director at Taxpayers Alliance, William Yarwood, to talk about, Rachel Reeves and her broken abacus. A very good afternoon to you, William.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Apologies, we've only got a short time with you, but unbelievable story that has emerged today. The Rachel Reeves is looking at Tony Blair-style PFIs, private finance initiatives, to fund the spending she wants to do on new towns. Basically, private, partnerships with private companies. Sounds good, doesn't it? And it seemed really like a good idea when Blair and Brown did it, except we ended up with £13 billion worth of investment, and to this date, £80 billion of costs being paid back, largely by schools and hospitals, many of which have been, some hospitals, local councils, basically completely bankrupted by it. Why on earth is she looking at this?
Because it's Rachel Reeves.
Hey.
And, if I'm going to give you a simple answer to you, Julie, it's Rachel Reeves. And yeah, you're right. Like, in principle, you think that taking costs off taxpayers is a good idea. But one, I don't trust Reeves to do this in the correct way. And second of all, it's been tried and failed before. I mean, the National Audit Office back in 2018 published a report that showed that a group of schools, in order to build a group of schools, it cost 40% more to do it through these schemes. And a hospital costs 70% more to construct under these types of schemes.
And they're still paying for it now. It's not just that. They do, it's part of the maintenance deal, isn't it? So there's the one school saying if they want a light fitting change, they have to pay 500 quid to have a new one and 400 quid to have the old one taken away.
Yeah, I believe the reporting itself in the Telegraph mentioned that some schools are paying upwards of 20% of their current budgets on these old PFI schemes, which makes absolutely zero sense. So look, I'm generally in favour of taking things off the backs of taxpayers. Of course I am, but these also have a long-term cost to taxpayers, as many things do. So if Reeves does go ahead with this, well, first of all, she should actually consider some of the planning laws and stuff, which is preventing house building rather than investment itself.
Wait a minute, aren't they trying to change that? I mean, one of the things I thought was good, the Labour Party was trying to change the planning laws.
Yeah, but they haven't really done all that much. I mean, they've said they've gone as far as they can on supply side. Well, it's like everything they do, Julia, right? Like, they've gone as far as they can go. We can't go any further because of political incentives and, of course, backbench opposition. So I don't trust Reeves to do this. I don't trust Steve Reed, the Housing Secretary, to do this in the correct and effective way. And unfortunately, Julia, like many things this government and indeed the last government and previous governments of all stripes and colours, it always seems to leave taxpayers footing the bill in the long run.
It does. It's weird, that, isn't it? And again, I mean, the woman's definitely got a broken abacus. By the way, today she's calling in oil bosses over tax loopholes. It's like the supermarket bosses being accused of profiteering, the oil bosses, everything. She just keeps calling people in. I mean, they must be saying, the secretary is going like, oh, boss, Rachel Reeves's office is on the phone again. You can imagine the expletives in all these offices. She's just, she's definitely on manoeuvres. She wants to keep her job, I think we can safely say.
Yeah, I mean, imagine getting a call saying Rachel Reeves wants to see you. I might find a reason to be ill that day, if I'm honest with you. Although I don't think Rachel Reeves would want to see me or anyone from the Taxpayers Alliance anytime soon, because we probably have some quite harsh words for her.
I would love to see that meeting. I really would. Now, here's something. I think a lot of pensioners are going to feel that way too. There's another raid on pensions. It's going to leave almost 3 million workers poor in retirement. She's curtailing tax breaks for employees who top up their pension pots. It's going to leave almost 3 million people basically. They're going to have less than they previously hoped. The Treasury says, look, high earners are currently able to pile cash into their pensions without paying a penny in tax. But actually, there's not that many people. And we are talking about people, who earn, 50 grand a year plus onwards. But people saving for their retirement was supposed to be something we were supposed to do. But the interesting thing, of course, is that MPs, of which Rachel Reeves is one, of course, won't be affected by this because they don't have those issues with their own pension scheme.
No, of course not. And they're also not affected by the high marginal tax rate, which you hit when you earn between over £100,000 and £125,000 a year. But yeah, this is just a stealth tax, Julia, plain and simple. One way, especially young people, were able to get around the high marginal tax rates they were paying when they reached that threshold was by putting more money into their pension scheme, which is a good thing because that's they're investing in their future. But no, Rachel Reeves needs more money to squeeze out of people and spend on welfare and other nonsense that she wants to spend on because, you know, she's Rachel Reeves. And that seems to be just common occurrence in this interview, isn't it? You know, why she's doing it, it's because she's Rachel Reeves and that's what she does. But yeah, it's a disgrace, quite frankly. And, you know, I feel sorry for the many taxpayers who've done this for years and have actually found a way to make sure they don't get, you know, slammed by the crushingly unfair marginal tax rate that they hit and actually plan for their retirement. And now they're not going to be able to because Rachel Reeves needs money for her own little projects.
Exactly. But again, you know, if you're in a private, you know, you're working in a private sector, you're not going to be getting a load of money from your employer into that. You're not in a final salary pension scheme. I mean, those are long gone now. And yet, say if you're a doctor and you just had your pay rise, something like 20% on top of your salary is then put into your pension fund. So it's okay for them to do it, but it's not okay for everyone else. And again, I thought we were trying to encourage people to do the right thing, to be able to fund their future. And given that people in the private sector can't be ending up funding everyone else's, you know, their care in the future if they end up in care homes, you think they'd want that. And just finally, really, really briefly, we are seeing, what a surprise, all of the fallout from that VAT raid on private schools. I've got no principle about them not putting VAT on school fees, private school fees, having sent my daughter private.